Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name is Tom.
So weird. That's the
Uh,
second time you've done that, mate, and it's brilliant. My name is James. Hello,
Good.
everyone. Hello, Tom.
Hiya, mate. How you doing?
I'm good. Tom, he's obviously standing in for Suj, who's still on holiday. Probably still raging about Jared Bowen's disallowed.
Oh,
It wasn't
don't.
Jared Bowen's disallowed goal. It was Maxwell Cornet's disallowed
Mm.
goal. Still raging about it, and I think Tom is as well. But we'll do a
See you
little bit
then.
of our.
Mhm.
Tom, introduce yourself to the people who don't know you, mate.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me back on, James. I'm really excited to be back. So, yeah, my name's Tom Campbell. I'm on Twitter at UtterlyTC. Come give me a follow. I've been sort of messing about with podcasting and various fantasy football bits for a few years. And yeah, James and I have been friends for a little while now. And I've been on a few of your shows, done a few quizzes and stuff. I'm a West Ham fan. And yeah, I'm excited to get into this weekend's fixtures because there's an awful lot to talk about. And it's good to be back on the show again.
You did the main pod with me, I think I
Sure
want to
did.
say March, maybe.
Yeah,
I
sounds
want to
right.
say it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
international break though, so we didn't have games to
No.
review as per
Hmm.
se. And I think it goes without saying it's been an eventful weekend,
No kidding.
both
Yeah.
for fantasy and non-fantasy reasons. Much of it to do with officiating, which we will talk about a little bit. Yeah, but really looking forward to getting into
Me
the
too,
nitty
man.
of the games with you, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So in terms of what we're going to go through today, we're going to try and keep it sort of familiar with the listeners, what they're used to. So we're just going to go through each of the fixtures. So we're recording Sunday night. So the Arsenal trip to Man United has just finished. We've just been talking about that off camera there. I'll talk about that one, of course, and go through the rest of the games. But look, James, we're also going to have to accept that we as listeners know your view on VAR.
Hate it.
You do hate it, and I think I'm in the same boat as well. But we can't. We felt like we couldn't do the show and not talk about it in some capacity because it felt like pretty much every game, maybe there are one or two exceptions, had a big VAR element, right? So the idea is that we're just going to face into that up front, talk about that, the incidents and our opinions on it. We'll try and relate it to fantasy if we can, and then we'll go through the fixtures after, and we won't bang on about those incidents when we come to review the games. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the plan.
there's a danger. We want to split it a bit because there's a
Mm.
danger. We're going to get into the games, just talk about VAR stuff, and I'd rather give insight that we've learned from the games and stuff separately.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think that makes sense. And then we've got some Twitter questions at the end, got some good ones that you haven't looked at. I have. So we'll make sure that if we don't tackle them in the like as the show progresses, then we'll tackle all of those individually at the end. So yeah, should be a cracking show. So I mean, in terms of the VAR decisions, James, do you want to just give me your thoughts on the the ones that really stood out? Like clearly I'm a West Ham fan. There's one that I do want to talk about, and you can guess which one that is. But just overarching, what are your kind of feelings on how this weekend's played out and how the incidents have happened over the course of the weekend?
Awful. I can't,
Mm.
but like I don't, I can't believe that anybody as a neutral enjoys that weekend of football from an officiating perspective. We've had buzzkill moments across the board, none bigger than the Maxwell Cornet goal for West Ham, where my biggest bugbearer of all with VAR is the fear of can you celebrate goals? And when you go and get a last minute equaliser in the London derby in a game that you probably didn't deserve to lose in the first place, you have every right to go absolutely mental. There won't have been a single person in that stadium who thought that that was going to be disallowed. Similarly, with the McAllister goal for Brighton today, there's
Oh
not a
no.
single person in the stadium today who's seen an absolute howitzer thunder bastard where anybody watching that game, probably even Leicester fans, went, "Whoa, that's some goal." And that would have been their reaction to it. There won't have been
Yeah.
any Leicester fans going, I think that's offside,
Yeah.
or it just kills the moment. We had one yesterday at Tottenham with Richarlison's
We did.
disallowed goal, which I think is, yeah, I've got no real problem with that because it was clearly offside. But completely killing the moment, the
Mm.
Newcastle goal.
Newcastle, yeah.
I mean, the Newcastle goal where Willock's collided with the keeper. I have a little bit of acceptance with this one in the sense that Gator is obviously impeded, which means that he can't get to the ball. But how it can
Sure.
be determined that Willock, no footballer ever in their right mind has gone, I'm going to collide with a flying goalkeeper here rather than head of football. It just logically wouldn't even happen.
Yeah.
The only decision that could have been given there, other than well, the advantages to Newcastle, so we'll give the goal. If you really want to look at it and say Gators impeded, the only other decision you can make there is penalty to Newcastle.
Hmm.
Could have been a middle ground where you went, yeah, do you know what? Gators been impeded, but
Yeah.
the first incident is a foul on Willock. It's clear. Nobody
Yeah.
doesn't think that Mitchell pushed Willock. That's the only other decision that could be made there. I can understand Leeds fans' anger because there were two very similar incidents in the Brentford Leeds game where Brentford were given a penalty. And I think that both incidents were penalties. The Brentford one, the referee gets told, look at it. The Leeds one, he doesn't get told to look at it. Again, you'd almost be in a better situation. Like all of these would be better if you went with on-field decisions. West Ham would have a goal. Newcastle would have a goal. In every situation, Arsenal would have had a goal today, which was very debatable. I think this one is more up for debate. But everything would actually be better if we just had on-field refereeing decisions. And that's despite the fact most people think that the officiating in this country is shit, which most of us agree with. But actually, this weekend would have been better if we just went with refereeing decisions.
Do you think there's something in the, it was the fact that Michael Oliver upheld his decision and had the kind of the guts there to say, do you know what, I've looked at that and no, I'm sticking with it. Experienced referee, probably one of our better ones. I think most people would agree. Versus, the Newcastle one, very inexperienced ref. Do you think that's going to be something that we see and actually see people? Historically, that's kind of gone down well. I've read in social media and stuff that the referee saying, "Do you know what? No, I'm going to back myself and go with this." Do you think we'll see that going that direction?
And there will be people that disagree with the fact that he gave the penalty for the Nottingham Forest incident against Bournemouth, because at the end of the day, it's still subjective.
Yeah.
So there'll be people who don't think that's a penalty. That's absolutely fine. And any other weekend, we'd be going, well, isn't that refreshing and good? A referee's actually stuck to his guns and gone with his original decision. But actually, because of all the other nonsense that's been going on, we're just talking about other things. I mean, the Bowen disallowed goal.
It was brutal. It really was. It was just a nonsense. Look, I mean, this is a fantasy football podcast, we know, but at the end of the day, we're all football fans as well, or certainly the majority of us are.
It's a football podcast.
It's a football podcast, isn't it?
You podcast is afterwards.
It genuinely is. Like, I've been listening to you guys since day one, and it's all about the football content for me, really. And that was a sickener to take. And I'll tell you what boiled my piss as well, even more, was the McAllister one. Not even more, but watching that McAllister goal in the moment this afternoon, I celebrated it. I've no love lost for Brighton at all, but what a hit and what a goal. And as a football fan, it's just like, how have you seen fit to do away with that? And it sort of breaks your heart, really, that you have to, like you say, question whether or not you can celebrate moments. That's got to be what it's all about,
Yeah, football is losing its innocence, and I hate that.
Yeah, that's a good phrase.
It's that fear of, can I celebrate? And the irony is with that McAllister one today, that's one of them where you'd go as a fan, whoa, 25-yard screamer, I can celebrate that one. Of course.
Yeah.
And I hate that. We have to get to a place. There's no point saying I'll get rid of VAR and stuff, which I would happily do, because it's not going anywhere.
No.
And hopefully when Howard Webb gets hold of the PGMOL at the end of the year and takes over, then hopefully things will improve. Probably between now and then, we've got to put up with shit and live with it, unfortunately. So it's not going to go away. There's no point people like me screaming bin it, bin it, bin it, because actually it's just not, unfortunately. I don't even think FIFA would let them bin it. They're certainly not going to bin it during a football season in any case anyway. This is the future. This is where we're at. We have to get to a place where incidents in the ground are far quicker and far more apparent. Stuff has got to be instant. It has to be instant. Yesterday at Tottenham, I was obviously in the stadium. Richarlison had a goal disallowed.
Yeah.
And consciously, I'm thinking, it's close, that.
Yeah.
I know that's close. And to be fair, the Harry Kane goal was extremely close as well. And I didn't celebrate it at all. Because I said to my dad, I said, that's going to be ridiculously close. I sit on the side at that end of the ground in line with a penalty area. So I've got a kind of view to know that's going to be very close. Don't celebrate it. No. And even at that point, it's like, for the Kane goal, it's like a minute later, VAR check.
Yeah.
It's fairly obvious it's going to be really close. Notify people and say, we're checking it.
Yeah.
We're checking it.
Do you think there's a couple of questions I want to ask you? I've read a couple of things that says, one, do you think there should be a clock on this that says if the decision can't be reached after, let's say 30 seconds, then it's clearly not clear and obvious and you stick with the ref's decision? Do you think there's something in that?
It's like we're systematically using science to determine football now, like so with offsides and stuff. It's not what offside was for. No. Offside was to stop people getting an advantage.
Yeah.
Danny Welbeck didn't have an advantage today, mate.
No, 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 no.
It's
Yes, I mean the
no.
handball rule was originally introduced way back at the dawn of time for football to stop people running with it. That was the thing. They didn't want football to be confused with rugby union. That's why handball exists. And then you're these marginal ones where it's like, hit the upper part of the shoulder. It's like that's not in the spirit of why the rule was introduced. So that's a load of shite as well. And I don't know that, like you say, the innocence going out of it. The one other part that confuses me is why are the replays only ever shown in slow mo? Why do they not see any replays in real time? Because football's played in real time, right? I don't see why every replay has to be done. I'm not saying away with the slow mos, but surely that gives us a bit of context in real time
Yeah.
as to how it actually played out to how the game went. And I don't understand why we don't do that.
This is what I can't argue with people who say to me, it's not a VAR problem. It's a problem of people who run the system. I can't at the same time go, I dislike VAR, everyone knows, but I can't argue with that comment at the same time. I hate VAR because of the soul destroying, removing emotion from my body when I'm watching a football match. From the element of English referees on VAR, and it's worth saying it was an Australian who was doing the VAR for Chelsea West Ham, by the way. It's not just even English in the Premier League. It's Jared Gillett, who was the Australian referee, was the VAR for Chelsea and West Ham. I think there's things that we can do to improve the game massively. Take the Van Dijk incident.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's orange. There's a high level of orange. Yeah. It's one of them where if he'd been sent off, VAR are not going to him and saying overturn that. No. At the same time, so what's the line? So for certain things like offside, we forensically examine it, but on things like this, is still subjective. Yeah. I feel like that's a perfect case to say this incident happened quite quickly. Did you have the best view? Just say to the referee, would you like to have a TV view of this? Because it's borderline. That's it. It feels like the Newcastle one. I imagine the poor kid referee doing the Newcastle game has been told on the way over to the monitor, this is why I've told you to go over. Yeah. That's like how it feels. The Arsenal one today, where it's probably a foul, in fairness. One. But at the same time, the bar has been set really high in terms of physicality this year, where these decisions are getting let go. That's a problem in the game. I like the fact that the game's being more physical, but I don't like the fact that I'm seeing in every single game clear fouls getting let go. It's happening to every team, every single team, whether at the top of the league, the bottom of the team. There's physical challenges happening where they're like clear, it's beyond shoulder barge, if you will, and things are getting left because, we want a more physical product because we're the Premier League. But the problem is that happens and then there's a goal happening and you treat that incident differently with Odegaard today, different to all the other ones you're letting go because now you're forensically analysing it. And of course, if you want to go by the rules, it's probably a foul.
You got it, man. You got it. I guess the one thing that gives me a pause and a bit of hope, James, is that other countries who've had it for longer and have implemented it have done so comparatively more successfully. So I do wonder whether or not, like you say, Howard Webb coming on board, there's talk of ex-pros being involved, etc. longer term, things might get better. I don't feel like it can get a whole lot worse long term,
absolutely, right? With the ex-pros, and they won't go for it. They won't go for it because they'll be like, you don't understand the rules like us. But 100%, you put any ex-pro in the studio for the Maxwell Cornet goal and the Newcastle goal, those two goals stand. 100%.
Yeah. All right, dude. Look, I think we'll probably put it to bed, because we'll go round and round in circles. We both know where each other are at. I'm sure the listeners do as well. And it's annoying we had to face into it. But there was just so much this weekend. We just sort of thought we had to kind of tackle it separate. And now we can get on and actually talk about the games that went through, played this weekend. So we'll start. James,
no, we won't. Okay. We won't.
No, go on.
Stop about you ain't telling everyone about your shit FPL week, mate.
Oh Christ, yeah, I thought I'd managed to dodge it. So confession time. I actually thought I was meant to be on the podcast last week. So I was like,
you just sitting somewhere waiting for the call.
Are you gonna get back from Nottingham to host this? And then I was like, I think I might have got my dates wrong. But if it had been that week, I would have had a good week to tell you about. But such is life, it didn't. So I had a colossal 36 points this week, James. So thanks for bringing that up. And I think you've managed to pit me, right?
Yeah, mate. I've got like a whole 10% on top of you, mate. I've got a world-class 40 in the bag, mate.
Yeah. Well, like you said to me off camera, you said it was a good week to have a bad week. So, yeah, pretty disappointing, mate. I mean, apart from Captain Haaland, who I guess is pretty, ubiquitous there at the minute. My just looking at my points. What did I said to my missus this morning? I said it reads like a sound check of 2-2-1-2, 2-2-1-2 just throughout the friggin' team. So yeah, disappointing game week for me. And yeah, so it sort of compounds a pretty ordinary start, really, sort of sitting around the 500,000 rank overall. So not that I care too much about rank
nice,
right
mate.
now, but yeah, it's a disappointing
you're doing a lot better than me. I'll be down to about 1.9 million, I think. I saw on live FPL net, having a quick look. Suj got 39 this week.
Oh, right in between.
For the record.
rose between two thorns. Right.
Between us, we've all done similar. There'll be, I think what I was looking at scores last night of teams that had done well, and commonly they all had something in common. And it was one was Ivan Toney, and the other was Newcastle defensive.
Yeah.
That all seem to have that, whether it was Trippier or Pope.
Yeah.
So those who've done really well this week seem like they've had Tony's hat trick. And on my deadline stream yesterday, the amount of people were saying, I want to go Tony to Mitrovic. What do you think?
Yeah.
My advice was stick just on I'm a fixture head. A fixture head doesn't make sense. Mitrovic has got Tottenham and Chelsea. Tony's still got Leeds at home today, and I think it's Southampton away next week. Just calm down.
Yeah.
So hopefully most people stuck with him, but there definitely will be people who sold. And
two good picks though, James, aren't they? Yeah, two good picks though, Tony and Mitrovic. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Term, you know? And I can understand it. People would have gone on with Tony. He'd had a couple of blanks. And Mitrovic has been returning every game. Mitrovic has blanked in one game and he missed a penalty in that one.
I've got to confess, James, as well. I didn't realize Tony had that level of quality from set pieces outside of the box, shooting directly from set pieces. I mean, it was precision, wasn't it? And he went so close with the second one as well, wasn't it? So I didn't quite realize he had that as well. Good player.
He'd go to the World Cup as Kane's backup for me.
Yeah, it's that one. They did mention that on Match of the Day, and you know, they were comparing him to Tammy Abraham, who's obviously doing well under your favourite Jose there at Roma. But yeah, for me, he's got to be in the mix, right?
I think impressive. Tony's got more variety. Tony can come in and link as a 10. Tony can play as an orthodox number 9. I think he's got more variety in terms of how he can play tactically for teams and stuff. He wasn't mentioned loads in the.
Yeah, agree, man. And he wasn't mentioned heaps, was he, in the transfer window, which is obviously just closed? But there wasn't talk about Brentford having to lose him this summer, was there? There was, it seems like he's going to be a hot prospect if he continues, right?
No, and I think he's pretty grateful to Brentford for having taken a chance on him and stuff when Newcastle were a bit more impatient with him and stuff. Ironically, Newcastle, probably not now they've got Isaac, probably were the sort of club who arguably were going to go for him in the window. There's a case of saying prove yourself for the second year and everyone will want you.
Yeah.
It could be that in 2 years, someone like Tottenham's looking at him as a Harry Kane replacement. If Aubameyang fails this time next year, whether Brentford would sell to Chelsea is possibly debatable, but Chelsea may want to look at him this time next year, for example. Yeah. United are going to need a new number 9 possibly this time next year. So there'll be...
Not if they have Marcus Rashford playing through the middle, although he's doing better off the left, isn't he? So he's the other name, wasn't he?
We'll get into that. We'll get there, Tom. I just have a couple of quick things I want to say about my team. My 40 points. Because they're part funny, and I don't mind laughing at myself. How the fuck have I got 2 points from Robertson and Trent when Liverpool finally kept a clean sheet?
That's brutal, man. The two fullbacks, and I
was watching the game outside the home end at White Hart Lane with Lee and Sam from FPL Family.
Yeah,
and obviously Sam and the kids are Spurs fans. Lee's Liverpool, so I'm watching the second half with him. Yeah. And he said it straight away. How have you got 2 points when you've got the double defence? Whatever, mate.
Rotten luck, mate.
Ryan Sessegnon, 5-pointer yesterday. He should have been 25-pointer, mate. Like, honestly, how was he not mega hauled? It's the exact reason why we all really want Ivan Perisic generally in the team. Have you wildcarded yet, Tom?
I haven't. I might do this week. In readiness for next week. Definitely possible for me. I think we can get into the strategic part if you want, James. But like, obviously, with the World Cup and having unlimited transfers in there, I don't feel like my squad needs wholesale changes. That question "need," it's in inverted commas, right? But I also feel like when is the most the opportunity to get most value out of this? Bearing in mind you're going to have it's got to be used prior to that. So I haven't yet, mate, but I might do in readiness for 7. How about you?
I see there's going to be a lot of wild cards this week.
Heaps.
Kind of the point that I wanted to make because of things like that with Trent, Robertson, Reece James 1 pointer, Ivan Perisic 1 pointer, big hitters blanking. Like obviously a lot of people questioning about Mo at the moment. Heung-min Son still hasn't returned yet this season for Tottenham. A lot of these kind of 8 million midfielders haven't really been doing the business and stuff. There's loads of reasons why people, mainly I think, hitting the button now as well, because protecting from a value perspective.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say was it's not for me yet. I'm almost definitely going next week.
Okay,
which I decided on prior going into the week just gone.
Yeah.
The thing is, I look at my team for this coming week. Yeah, sure, I'm going to lose some value and some players here, but 3 Liverpool at home to Wolves, 3 City at home to Tottenham, 2 Arsenal at home to Everton, Sanchez at Bournemouth, Reece James at Fulham.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel right.
It's hard to wildcard that type of team, James, isn't it? You know?
Whereas you come into the next week and you can make the case Chelsea, Liverpool play each other. So there's 4 potential problematics there. But you don't have huge hopes for the week. City are away. Arsenal are away. Tottenham come on the other side of Man City away. And I'm in a position, I have Sessegnon, but I wouldn't play him at Man City. And he's probably going to be my transfer this week out anyway. They come into Leicester at home. So I can steam back into that on the other side. So it's going to be 8 for me. Those who want to do it now because of value, just check that you don't physically on paper have a great team this week, because we all got
advice.
Last week. What was the average last week? 62 across the whole game.
Sounds right.
I got 77 and was like 2 million for the game week. So it was nowhere near the top score knocking about. This week, the average looks like it's going to be about 39. Guess what's probably going to happen next week?
Yeah.
It's probably going to be in the 60s or 70s again. And there's a real swing the week after, I think.
Yeah.
Like West Ham, Newcastle are about to come into great run of fixtures. They're playing each other this week.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel quite right yet. One more week for me.
Plus, as well, James, you've got the advent of the European competition starting midweek, right? As well, feels like there's a lot of uncertainty, right? I mean, anything can happen during that week and stuff. And I would rather have info at this point. So, despite like the strategy being a bit different, well, totally different this season with that enforced wild card or additional wild card, I should say, unlimited transfers, whatever you want to call it, during the World Cup. I agree with you. I prefer not to use it. Doesn't sound like our teams are set up completely identically, but there's some similarities there. When I've set up my bus team, I didn't hate it.
Yeah, you know, then why are you wildcarding?
If
you're looking at your team at the week ahead, you like what you say, like wildcarding is reality. Just stop and consider that. Yes, I'm going to lose a lot of value this week, but it might come back anyway. If Liverpool do keep the clean sheet against Wolves this weekend and Robertson and Trent both start, might get some of that back next week while playing that wild card, possibly even. So just bear that in mind. Also, not a good week for early transfers.
No,
unless you're moving between Fulham and Forest assets, and if you're moving assets, you've got European fixtures. I wouldn't rush unless you've absolutely decided in your mind you can't bear to have 7.5 million of Trent, for example, anymore.
Yeah,
but like moving, but even then, what you moving? Okay, if you're moving to Newcastle, you Trippier or something. Okay, fine, go early. But people talking about maybe moving Salah to De Bruyne. Get through the Champions League fixtures, please, if that's what you want to do. And I wouldn't do that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of transfer, if you made that early, that might force you into the wild card if things that went wrong in the midweek. And I feel like that's always a bad place to be using the wild card from later on in the week, when you potentially missed out on some price changes anyway, and kind of your hand's been forced. I don't feel like that's how it's intended, right? Good thoughts though. So in terms of fixtures, James, the Merseyside derby 0-0 played out. We already talked about the couple of VAR decisions there, but what did you make of the game? Pickford's first, or Everton's first, clean sheet there for Lampard. Do you think they looked a little bit better? What was your reading of the game?
I mean, I absolutely deserve something from the game.
Yeah.
This obviously could have gone either. I think it's 37 shots in the game.
Yeah, it was heaps,
which I think was the most in a game this season. So, it shouldn't have finished 0-0. Both goalkeepers played extremely well, and obviously there were some near misses. I assume Pickford got top bonus. I did not. Joe Gomez got it, I'd say. But Pickford's performance in particular, the 2 keepers, was great. That said,
1 BPS less. Yeah, good shout.
I mean, Everton, some of the chances Everton had on the break. That one, the chance that went to Maupay in the second half, 5 on 3. Yeah. They're getting murdered on the counter-attack by Everton, 5 on 3. Yeah. And even if you think back to the game at Anfield in April, like with Gordon running on the break, they had Liverpool in trouble in certain spells, even though people were accusing them of being super pragmatic and Richarlison's diving and stuff on that particular day. No, I think Everton might... The problem Everton have got, you mentioned first clean sheet, but actually their defensive numbers in terms of goals conceded this year is not that bad. I've drawn 4 in a row. So
Mm-hmm.
if you could say Everton are unbeaten in 4,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be kind of glass half full,
Yeah, yeah.
glass half empty. They lost to Chelsea opening day,
Mm-hmm.
1-0. The plenty of people think they should have got something at Villa game week 2. Okay. I said going into the Brentford and Leeds away games, they've got to get something. They've got to do
Mm-hmm.
something this week. And the reality is actually the 3 draws is doing something. And
Mm-hmm.
it's given them a platform. The 2 centre-backs are solid. Cody and Tarkovsky, they're experienced. They know what they're doing. Patterson at right back's playing really well. Mikolenko's now got adjusted to the league. I think he's more suitable to a fullback position rather than a wing back. So actually, the back 4 is not too bad. And the
Mm-hmm.
change, which ironically has been enforced by injuries at centre back to the midfield 3, is better for them.
Mm-hmm.
Much better, because we're getting completely overrun in that area. And just having Maupay on board, he's going to frustrate Everton fans. But they had to have someone there for when Calvert-Lewin's not available. And they've got it now. And I think despite the fact they've got awful fixtures coming up, no, I'm not going to recommend their assets. They're giving themselves a running chance from trying to stay. They are definitely going to be in a relegation fight, but they're giving themselves a fight. You know, them 4 draws are, it's not great, but it's acceptable. If they draw every game, they'll stay up. Put it that way, which they won't do.
It's those fixtures you mentioned, James, are rotten, aren't they? Because there are some players there that you've mentioned who might be of interest to managers, right? I mean, they're away at Arsenal, as you mentioned, in game week 7. Then they play West Ham at home, Southampton, Man United, Spurs, and Newcastle. So it's not a great run.
No,
but
it's awful.
It's tough, isn't it? But I mean, but you mentioned a couple there that I wanted to get your thoughts on in terms of maybe longer term, or if you are on a wild card. You know, the boy at right back that you called out there, he's made such a good start, and he's still actually only at 4 million. Anthony Gordon obviously stayed there as well with the window closing, and represents tremendous value, right? Do you think, irrespective of fixture, these are players that you could just plug into your team and just be like, do you know what? Over the course of the season, or certainly up until that World Cup, I think they're going to be value for the money that I'm outlaying, irrespective of fixtures. I don't see how that would be, a bad plan. What do you reckon?
Yeah, Patterson's fine, and particularly for those who've used the wild card or perhaps even using it now. Yeah, consider, because A, the price, B, if you look further ahead, sure, you're not going to pick him for much of those games coming up. Actually, the last 4 before Unlimited, Palace at home, Fulham away, Leicester at home, Bournemouth away. That's you might have some problems between now and then. You go, oh, he solves a problem for me at the end, possibly. And they might be in better shape by then, quite possibly. Everton might look at them last 4 fixtures going into the World Cup thinking, well, we want to get 8-9 points out of this, for example. They could well do, and they may need to do so.
It's impressive, isn't it? I mean, he was up against Luis Diaz in a Merseyside derby and did well, right? And didn't do just well defensively, but actually looked pretty attacking from an FPL point of view going forward as well. It's just someone who kind of leapt out to me a little bit there. And 4 million, obviously, you can't really get cheaper than that, right? Unless the people have had a drop. So, yeah, I like that shout. And Anthony Gordon, you're less enthused about him?
Yeah, I couldn't overly make a case for him at 5.5 with the fixtures coming out. I think the players at similar prices who have got better fixtures.
The Brighton boys.
Over the next 2, Morgan Gibbs-White at the same sort of price. Yes, the Brighton boys. Aronson is around about that value as well, isn't he? What price is Brandon Aronson? He's pretty cheap, I'm sure he is.
He is cheap. I don't know the price off the top of your head, but
no, wouldn't go there. All I'd say is as well, in part highlighting Everton being a little bit more solid than people maybe think is, like Jesus wouldn't be top of my agenda to captain this week. Like I wouldn't captain Jesus at home to Everton rather than Haaland against Tottenham. I would captain Haaland. So although you would obviously expect Arsenal to beat Everton at the weekend, I don't foresee it being a 4-5 for example. I think Everton are, with Cody and Tarkovsky at the moment, and the fact they've tightened with that midfield 3, are going to be a bit more difficult to beat.
I see.
For Liverpool, we've got the opposite problem. So one of the things I kept saying going into the Bournemouth game was, let's see afterwards if Bournemouth test them. Now, of course, that didn't happen. But Newcastle showed they were vulnerable at Anfield last midweek. And Everton certainly showed on Saturday lunchtime that they were vulnerable. They have a huge, huge problem with their midfield 3 at the moment. And again, was talking to Lee about it while watching the game and saying, basically, as soon as you take Fabinho or Thiago out of that trio, you spell problems. Now, it's worth saying, Thiago's likely to rejoin training this week and could even play as early as next week against Wolves. And that might, honestly, fix the problem. Where they go Fabinho, Thiago, Elliott, and just that alone, particularly if you put although Gomez according to the FPL BPS, played quite well at the moment. I think he's pretty vulnerable personally. Matip going back in there will make them better as well. And it might be like that the problem is fixed, but at the moment they look vulnerable. I think it's worth saying I was very critical of him after the Manchester United game on the podcast we did the next day, but VVD is not at it at the moment.
It's not, is he?
He looks completely unhappy. I can't remember the last time I saw him smile. He looks really stressed about things going on. This subbing of Robertson and Trent, what is it?
I don't get it, mate. No,
you're not making the team any better, are you?
No.
By taking them off. Admittedly, obviously, Robertson didn't start in the first place anyway.
And it's weird, James, isn't it, making those substitutions after the transfer window's closed? You know, because I sometimes think managers sometimes make these decisions to make a sort of political point that they're looking for reinforcements, but they can't do that now. So I don't quite understand why you'd be doing that at this stage. And Tsimikas, or however we want to pronounce his surname, he's not played well when he's been introduced, right, in the opening part of this season, from what I've seen either. So it feels odd, this fullback situation at Liverpool right now.
And that midfield three at the moment, I think Elliott's doing great, and it's not particularly a slight on Carvalho. It's the first time really he's played in that position for Liverpool, and it's a daunting game to do so considering it's the derby. You take Trent off when you want to go with 35 minutes to go. Is there a problem? I mean, they took him off early against Newcastle as well, and admittedly, I've seen minimal amounts of the Newcastle game, but they both came off early in that one, didn't they?
Yeah, and a lot of football, I guess, as well. Maybe there's that 3 games in a week, and
these guys
with the Champions League. But I mean, I'm searching for reasons. You know,
these guys are not essential. And you know, I won't have anyone as being essential. There's a Norwegian up front who is very difficult to overlook at the moment. But if you want to go against it, go against it. Personally, my take on Liverpool assets right now is Thiago might fix the problem really quickly. Generally, don't sell them this week, particularly the defensive ones. Like, I'm just going to suffer the pain with Robertson, unless I guess the flip of it is if Robertson plays 90 minutes in Naples on Wednesday. Am I in the same position where Tsimikas maybe plays again? Maybe. But at home to Wolves, I'd fancy as a clean sheet as much as any fixture around at the moment. So after that, over the fixtures 8 to 12, I make them worst. The most difficult 5 fixture of any teams. Chelsea away, Brighton at home. And Brighton is probably a more difficult home game than it is away game for the big clubs. Arsenal away, Man City at home, West Ham at home.
Yeah.
And I think over that period...
So
I could wildcard with no Liverpool. It's possible.
Well, I was going to bring it back to that wildcard chat we had at the beginning of earlier in the show, James, actually, in terms of like, give them the Wolves game. We know that Wolves aren't a potent side by any stretch of the imagination. Most people are going to be sitting there with at least one Liverpool defensive cover, you would think. So if you are looking to game week 7, it's a hold, we're saying, but longer term, it's a question mark, right? At best, with those fixtures.
Yeah, I think even Trent's a question mark. Yeah. And Salah has to be as well, because you look at them 5 afterwards. I mean, take this week. You captain Salah at home to Wolves or Haaland at home to Tottenham?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm Haaland is the armband at the I think he's just going to keep it until as and when he lets down. Right?
Unavoidable, isn't it?
Yeah.
So So I think so. Then you have,
as good as you guys have looked defensively.
And if people still prefer to go Mo at home to Wolves, fine. I would generally look at Wolves anyway as a fixture goes. As much as I think it's a good fixture for Liverpool defensively, I wouldn't think, Mo's going to get a hat-trick against them. Of course he's capable. But he just doesn't feel that way at the moment. Then you look at the fixtures afterwards and go, do I need him?
Yeah.
What can I do with that money if I start moving it around? Does that enable me to go from, if I want to drop into Sterling or an 8 million midfielder, does it enable me to look at a 4.5 into Mitrovic or Isak or Tony, or there's loads of things to look at potentially. Where I think what is nice is a lot of people really moaned about the game kind of being really stationary and I don't want to make transfers. I really think we get beyond this week, it's going to shake up. I
totally agree with you, mate. I totally agree. Yeah, no, I think that's good thoughts. Just I know we are not talking about Wolves specifically, but just whilst we mention them, I think I'm right in saying that I heard last season, defensively, they were the team that conceded the fewest goals outside of the teams that finished in the top 6, but they were also the team that scored the fewest goals in comparison to the bottom 3. So I just think, they have had a lot of personnel change, but I just think stylistically, that's how they're set up at the moment. They're going to be difficult to batter, but you're just not expecting them to threaten that much. And if they've got Pedro Neto still in there, who's been somewhat of a thorn in my side, I should say, then that ain't going to change anytime soon.
I
Anyway,
mean,
look,
what are you prioritising this week, Tom? Is it sending the Liverpool players or Pedro Neto?
no freaking kidding. Yeah, we shall see. All right, cool. I think that's heaps of chat on the Merseyside derby. So that had no goals then, James. Let's talk about a game that how it had 7. We had Brentford, who awesome game. There's loads of good goals. We talked about Ivan Toney, didn't we? But in terms of their game, they saw out a 5-2 victory over Leeds. What did you make of this one?
As soon as I saw the team, I was really concerned for Leeds with Cody Drammer playing at right back. Because I'd seen him play against Arsenal last year, and I thought, you're not up to scratch for this level. And was pretty concerned about it. Obviously, Rasmus Christensen's got an injury. The good news is it's not a long-term problem for Leeds, because obviously Luke Ayling returned in the second half as well. But I'm not surprised that Leeds had some problems with this game yesterday. And I'm also not surprised that Brentford showed vulnerability, because Christian Norgaard's out for a few weeks. And he really is a solid. He basically runs the game from them in front and back four. So I think it's just worth bearing in mind for those sort of Henry and Raya owners and similar. You might have some vulnerability for Brentford over the next few, even though Southampton away, Bournemouth away, 2 of the next 3. That's all right. I'd have a bet they don't get a clean sheet in either. And you wouldn't
got Arsenal at home in the middle.
Arsenal at home in the middle either, exactly. So they'll be fine. And it might be Norgaard might even be back for sort of 9, because that's after the international break, isn't it, actually? But I think they're vulnerable a little bit as well. And this is all part of what led to the game and what happened. Obviously, Tony's hat-trick goal was a little bit of a bizarre moment, and the game really opened up from there. Because obviously it was 0-0 after half hour. We're not going to talk about the decisions. We kind of cover it. I think Jensen's playing really well in midfield for Brentford at the moment. Not worth the FPL look. Tony obviously is. His system suits it better as well. We scream it all the time. Back 4 better for Tony. Back 5 better for Mbeumo. At the moment, it's back 4. This is better for Tony. Tom Med, by the way, just a bit of an update for those who listened to Clash of the Correspondents a couple of weeks ago after me and Sean Norton, I wouldn't say bully him, but kind of, let's say we took the piss out of him, the fact he had 3 Brentford players and couldn't get to Ivan Toney. Well, he did force him in. And obviously has had him for his haul this week and is obviously absolutely flying.
Good on him.
Again, yep, absolutely. Visser and Lewis Potter look like they're going to get rotating. You've got Damsgaard coming into that equation really shortly as well. If I was looking at Brentford to invest in new right now, it would be Tony and Tony only. De Silva is obviously being rotated at the moment. It's probably not going to be people's biggest headache, but Baptista's now started the last 2. And this might be partly to do with the fact that Norgaard's missing. Just firm it up a little bit more. I think there might be a combination there of that.
Think about, I mostly mentioned a lot of the listeners, James, will follow you on your live streams and stuff. And, the advice being about the Tony Mitrovic quandary prior to game week 6. Obviously things happen after that. But do you have a preference if you say you were wild carding or looking to like the longer term? Do you have a slight feeling either way as to who's the better pick? I mean, obviously there's a bit of a price difference there, but not much. Who do you favour?
Well, if I say I'm wildcarding in game week 8, it's Mitrovic, isn't it? Because then it's the opposite. Then you look at you walking into Tony at home to Arsenal and Mitrovic away to Forest. No brainer at the moment on what I'm watching. So yeah, Mitrovic highly likely for me. And obviously having seen him up close and personal at the weekend, I can absolutely assure you this is not the Mitrovic of 2-3 years ago.
No, and he's not old, is he, James? He's not an old player. Like, he's been around a while, but he's kind of I had him pegged as being in the kind of middle part or the latter part of his career, but that's bollocks.
If he stays fit all season, he'll get close to 20 goals.
He's a different beast, isn't he? Yeah,
which obviously with the Norwegian up front for Man City, it's going to look irrelevant, but it's a very, very good return. So it would be Mitrovic. But then exactly that, again, if you've got Tony, you're not leaving Tony now, but then that's the right time just logically to look at it. Okay, 8, Arsenal at home, Mitrovic now is off the back of Tottenham, Chelsea, Forest away. Okay, now we can get the haul potentially going the other way. Yeah, I would look at it logically like that.
What about Leeds? James, you see anybody there that you like?
Yeah, I think the 3 playing behind the front man are all interesting at the moment. Me and Luke on Friday's pod had a bit of a moan about Sinistera's price, but he's done the business again. It's just difficult to make a case for him when he's at the same value as like Martinelli and Rashford. It's really difficult, which I think makes Aaronson the one that's probably most appealing as the cheapest option per se. They've got Forest at home this week, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you'd be selling with what you've got. But I probably wouldn't be investing new. I feel like you had this real three fixtures,
Yeah.
Everton, Brentford, and Forest, and it's coming towards the end of it. Not that the fixtures are awful afterwards, but then they get a little bit more challenging. So
yeah.
at the
So
moment, probably no. Leeds not on my mind, and at top of the pitch is still a problem until they get Bamford properly fit, and obviously Rodrigo's now injured.
had a bad miss, didn't he, Bamford, in that game as well?
How did he miss it?
Yeah, it was a tough miss, that one. All right, cool. So there are a couple of options there, but not many. Let's move on and talk about my team, West Ham. We went away to Stamford Bridge, lost the game 2-1. We've obviously talked about the goal that wasn't at the end there. But look, I mean, we can forget the first half. I'm here to tell you, I know you haven't seen it, but you've not missed anything. So don't worry too much about that. I actually thought Antonio would score in this game. I thought he looked good against your mob. I think he's looked a little bit sharper. I think the new personnel we've brought in has given him a bit of a kick, is my read on that. I think he looked a bit but improved. So I wasn't surprised to see him score. And then look, Ben Chilwell's come off the bench there and has grabbed a goal and an assist to give Chelsea all 3 points. But
got a great stat on that for you, Tom, if you like it.
Hook me up. Yeah, always keen for a stat.
First defender ever to score and an assist as a substitute in the Premier League. Ever.
Man, that's cool. Like
only 17 players have ever done that in Premier League history as the first defender to do it, score an assist as a substitute.
Do you know what? I was so high on him during the summer, James. I was in all of my drafts before, and then just the way that Chelsea's pre-season went and his lack of game time and what have you, obviously still coming off a pretty horrible injury. I know he did feature at the back end of last season. I just sort of chickened out a little bit, and obviously he's not been featuring Mark Cucurella signing and what have you, but I still rate him really highly. But you know, what did you make of this from a massive win for them, right? They've been in turmoil after what was a chaotic transfer window. It's a big win for them. We're a tougher nut to crack these days. But what did you make of that? It still feels like they're ice skating uphill to me. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's not right.
No.
And I think we suspected that was the case pre-season. We watched the Everton game and it was very underwhelming. Then they were great against my team in game week 2, and everyone went, "Oh, okay, they're still probably the third best team in this league, basically." But the performances since then have certainly in the away games not been great. Leicester was a great result in the end because of the circumstance around Gallagher's red card. They were fortunate to win this. That said, I think the manager showed once again why he's elite. So I only watched the second half of this. I'd watched Villa City, heard the first half of your game was bad, but knew it was going to be rerun on Sky. Got Harry into bed, watched the second half of this before match of the day. And he did something extremely unique tactically, Thomas Tuchel, with his substitutions, where he ended up playing in the end of the game. Jorginho had come on at the base and he played Mason Mount and Raheem Sterling. Yes, Raheem Sterling as 8s. And then got Havertz up front with Breuer. And they just overloaded the penalty box with Sterling and Mount attacking from deep. Now, one thing I think it's fair to say about Chelsea, and Tottenham also suffer with this because of the system. One of the real limitations of back three is that creativity is a massive problem. Now, in the case of Tottenham and Chelsea, in Tottenham's case, Kulusevski and Kane can have individual moments that make up for it. For Chelsea, unless Mason Mount's doing it, they can have games where creativity is a problem, and a lot of it does come from Reece James. Let's be honest, when he's at his best from wing back. And this is a potential way around it, I think. He's using, in fixtures like this, Raheem Sterling in a midfield position. I wonder if it's something we could see more, which is certainly a note for those who are thinking, yeah, Raz is in good form. Havertz, late in that game, benefited from having the brutality of Breuer next to him. Now, that's irrelevant going forward, but it might be relevant that it could be Aubameyang and Havertz together in certain stages moving forward. So it's just a little twist where I think in the big games, Tuchel very often still shows himself to be an absolute elite manager, but definitely not always well. And it's one thing looking at that setup. That setup doesn't include either of their two best midfield players in my position, which is, in my opinion, which is Mateo Kovacic, and obviously N'Golo Kante is injured at the moment. So it's not a long-term solution, but we might.
Not outside of Declan Rice.
Declan Rice will, I'm sure, probably join Chelsea next summer, Tom. Let's be very honest. Although I could tell certainly in his post-match interview,
he was pissed.
He's still very much West Ham at the weekend. Good for him.
Nice to see,
I really wanted him to rip Not so that he got suspended, but I just felt like it would have been very fair if he'd done so. He does when you get done over like that, it does feel wrong that you can't even properly talk about it. Anyway, it's just something I picked out on Chelsea. Yeah, they're not quite right. I think Chilwell versus Cucurella is debatable going forward. Chilwell, I don't know if it's Tuchel doesn't really fancy him, or we've speculated that there might be stuff where his recovery from games is more difficult. Perhaps his mental fatigue. Obviously, he's had a very serious injury that he's obviously still recovering from. But it seemed to make no sense that very suddenly they were happy to play him at Everton, and some people can say it was Everton, and then we didn't see a lot of him since. Cucurella can obviously cover at left-sided centre-back, but then it does mean shoving Koulibaly along, which with Fofana now obviously integrated.
He was the one I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah.
Well, he might be my transfer this week, Tom. So
me too.
What I've got, I'll talk about Andreas Pereira in a bit, but I've got him busting the team at the moment, home to Chelsea. That feels quite weak. There's nothing I can do in terms of value of that, and there's no way I'd sell him. So I've got Sessegnon. Don't want to play him at Man City. Probably doesn't even start anyway. So the solutions to me would be obviously take a 1 week punt if I'm going to wild card. Ordinarily, you'd say perhaps roll it. But if I'm going to wild card the following week with what I've got the rest of my team I'm very happy with, it's probably 1 week punt for a very cheap defender. So contenders would be, I think Estupiñán would be the only Brighton I could get to because I've got no money in the bank. And that's debatable whether he'd start or not. Obviously, he didn't start for Brighton today. You likes of Ben White at Arsenal. Or the obvious one, it's Wesley Fofana at Chelsea away to Fulham, and just go fine. I'll take a chance. I'll go double Chelsea.
Or Patterson, right? Shit fixture, but we did pick him up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I need this guy to play for me though, Tom. So I'm not getting Patterson into play away to Arsenal. I'd more probably Nico Williams away to Leeds would be more likely, but I don't particularly fancy that.
I liked the Fofana shot.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's the most likely move.
Yeah,
get him in, and I think there'll be interest, and I'd imagine he'll be part of the wild card anyway. It's just
good time.
4.4 for the money they've spent. He's obviously going to play regularly. Is he going to play every game? No, probably not, because the Champions League and stuff. But he's obviously going to play regularly enough. He's also probably not one of those as a centre back that's going to come on for the shit 1 pointer very often and stuff. So at 4.4, I'd be very, very interested. I think for those who have used wildcard, for example, I'd be thinking, how am I going to get there? That's better as well than, I think, say, Ben White at Arsenal. Because there's a little bit of doubt there with, say, Tomiyasu and stuff.
I mean, you mentioned Aubameyang as well, James. Hard to know exactly where he's at. He's got this cheek injury right now. I know that Broja just signed a new contract as well. Do you think in terms of Chelsea assets going forward, you just kind of a bit of a holding pattern on those then and watch this space rather than outside of Fofana, who's going to be tremendous value at 4.4 million, and just kind of wait to see how that system that you've analysed plays out, and you wouldn't necessarily advocate for getting on any of their attacking assets?
If James is going to play wing back every game, then
got to have him, right? Yeah, got to have him. Yeah,
you'd certainly want the attacking players. Don't hold huge interest for me. Like I think there are better options than Mount.
Yeah,
Sterling.
If he's going to play as an 8, Sterling's a problem. Yeah.
I don't think that will happen often. I think it was just more to make people aware that it did happen.
Yeah.
And then therefore it's not impossible that we could see it again, basically. Yeah. I imagine the first choice front three for Chelsea is probably Mount, Sterling and Aubameyang is the way that he wants to go. But Havertz is going to be a part of that conversation somewhere, and Broja's going to want to be a part of that conversation. So is Pulisic is still there, and so is Ziyech. So when the fixtures look easy as well, these guys might get left out as well.
Yeah, we know. So look, West Ham, my team, obviously disappointing result. You've mentioned they've got a nice upcoming fixture run. You could argue it starts in 7. Newcastle's a tough game to me, I think, but it's not a horrible game. So starting to get a bit of interest around their players. Is there anyone that stood out to you? Do you like any of their players ongoing? I mean, we signed Paqueta. He's in at 6 million in midfield. Obviously, Antonio scored as well. Is there anyone that's kind of leaping out to you there?
It's nice that you're live on the telly on Sunday against Newcastle because you're too high on the agenda right on that wild card. So get to watch you both up close.
Yeah.
Paqueta is a super talent. Whether that's going to equate to FPL returns, we can't tell yet.
Don't know yet. No,
we can't judge that on Tottenham. A cameo against Tottenham and playing at Stamford Bridge. Anyway, what it looked like you did, just briefly tactically, was kind of sit him in between Antonio and Bowen without the ball. to take the pressure off the amount of work you would expect him to do off the ball, where Antonio was funneling left, Bowen was funneling right. You still had the protection of Souček and Rice, therefore, behind Paqueta.
Yeah.
It was also not clear what I've seen of the game to actually clarify with certainty whether you, and I didn't watch the first half, whether you started with a back four or a back three.
He's just a quick one on Paqueta as well, James. He went all over the pitch, right? So he sort of favoured the inside left-hand channel, which I think is where he's going to operate. But certainly initially, he was kind of filling in on the right-hand side as well. So there's a bit of I think he's a great signing. I think he's a super asset, and he's at a price which I think would be potentially be really appealing. Marcus Rashford's going to get the plaudits this week, and will get inevitably the price rises probably. But I do think he's a player that would interest me of our attacking options. Defensively, I think we're better under Moyes than we've been for a long time. I think
Paqueta should fall right at the top of people's of one to watch in game week 8. Watch him, get a proper look. Bowen, I'm not put off because I know them returns will come. So Bowen right now, I would happily potentially punt on the wild card because he's come down to the value of the others, right? I sell Diaz now, get Bowen for the same price.
Yeah.
So very interested in that with Liverpool's swing. And Emerson needs to be watched because if he's going to play regularly at 4.0 with these fixtures coming up, it's not just it's potentially start at that price as well. So very interested in him. You had, by the looks of it, and you used to have this when Masuaku played for you in front of Cresswell, and I know Cresswell didn't play at the weekend, this real lopsided nature towards the left side.
As I said, got it.
But what the only thing to note on this is when it was lopsided, Emerson was very defensive, and you can make a case that Fornals was the left wing back in this system, and Emerson was playing left sided centre back. But I think the addition of Paqueta means the intention now is probably to play a back four. It's worth saying that the positions behind Antonio / Shamaka, if we assume that Bowen is regularly going to play, it's quite competitive. You've got 2 spots now for Paqueta, Fornals, Ben Rama, Maxwell Cornet.
Maxwell Cornet, right? Yeah.
There's probably someone else I'm missing from that, Tom.
Ben Rama, did you mention?
Yeah. But it's very competitive now.
Yeah.
Where the only concern with Paqueta is there might be rotations. We don't know at this stage how strong you won't go in the Conference League, for example.
Moyes doesn't rotate loads. I would say once he's set on what his team, his belief on the best 11 is, I think that's more the point I'd make. I don't think he yet knows how he wants it to play out. Like Maxwell Cornet's been signed for a little while yet. Now he's not really bulldozed his way into the team yet. I still think he'll find a spot. So I can't really sit here on this podcast, James, and tell you what our best 11 is. And I think that's one of the things that's putting me off. I think for the money that Paqueta signed for, I think he's going to be given every chance in the league to shine.
Which means if I want to invest into them fixtures, I default to Jarrod Bowen, mate.
I see, mate. Yeah. Okay, cool. Look, it was a disappointing one to end. Anyway, you've mentioned Newcastle as well, James. Let's move on and talk about their game against Crystal Palace. So another one with a VAR incident there. And you mentioned that, people who've done well have bought into this Newcastle defence. It was a 0-0 game here. Is that Newcastle defence where you're kind of focusing your attentions then? How did you see that? How did you see how this game went?
There's definitely one coming in on that wild card, and I think there's every chance there'll be 2 actually.
Radio.
With what they've got, Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, Brentford at home. The first 3 from 8. Once you get beyond West Ham this weekend, could be Pope and trips for me. I think every chance. Yeah. And then maybe make a decision down the line in terms of whether I'd want to keep that. But to be honest with you, up to the end, the fixture's not too bad. We've got Tottenham away in 13. I think they've got United away in 11.
Yeah.
But not the worst. And they've got Chelsea at home last game before the World Cup. So they've obviously got City and Liverpool out of the way. So that's not coming for a while. So there's nothing huge to fear. I would pay the extra for trips over the other defensive guys. No doubt about it.
Oh, mate, definitely. See, you picked up 2 bonus points there, and that's more kind of chance creation. So he's a tremendous FPL asset.
Well, he's on a lot of the set piece and stuff. That may calm down a bit once Guimaraes comes back into the team.
Possibly.
Where it might be a bit more of a sharing duty. But it's still worth it. Lots will be looking at sort of Trent to Trippier this week.
Yeah, I really like Pope
moving the money,
James, as well. I like you mentioned Pope.
Absolutely.
Before the start of the season, I was thinking if I was going to have a keeper who I would stick with, irrespective of what I just have from the game week 1 through to the World Cup, it would have been Nick Pope. And I even at 5 mil, it was kind of like, actually, I think this guy's built up enough credit at his time at Burnley for us to have faith in him. And Eddie Howe's setting them up defensively well, hasn't he?
The concern was obviously was a great asset at Burnley, and he obviously had
Mm.
that 1 year where he nearly won the Golden
Yeah,
Glove, and he
yeah.
was high scoring FPL keeper and stuff.
Hmm.
Burnley strategically used to allow shots on goal
Yeah,
from range, which
from
used to
range. Yeah,
help him with picking up the save tiers because he's not going to get beaten from range very often.
yeah.
And obviously the Burnley defensive guys are never going to hit passing kind of BPS
Bless
points
them.
or
No.
anything. So there was a concern that Newcastle obviously become more attractive side. You've got players like Botman and Trippier
Hmm.
might dominate quite a bit of that BPS area, and therefore Pope might not get hold of it. But when you've got games like Crystal Palace at home where they're having 9 shots on target, so Pope's made 9 saves on
Yeah,
Saturday,
yeah, yeah.
and yet only had an XG of around about 1.
Mm.
Tells me that there's a narrative there that might be not too dissimilar to what was going on at Burnley. Now, playing in a team that I think most of us think will finish top half,
Yeah,
what's not to love about it,
yeah,
actually?
yeah. I
So
agree.
it's a
I
case
mean,
to
they
say
were.
right now, if you're buying new,
Mhm.
he might be the best goalkeeper in the game at this minute.
I think that's where I'm coming down on that side. Like, everything that you said just there, I think he gives an assurance as well to his back four. I think that can't be overstated either. Look, I mean, offensively, they were missing a few players. Obviously, Isaac, the new signing, impressed in the tough game against Liverpool on his debut. But
Possibly got another knock, by the way.
Isaac,
Possibly, yeah, possibly very late in the game he went off.
okay, well,
Um,
a different from the dead leg, maybe.
it
Or
might be the other
yeah,
dead. The other leg might be dead. I don't know.
yeah.
2 dead legs would be problematic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, you caught life support on there. But look, I mean, he was played through. He's a player that I'm super excited about having when he signed up. And actually, the chance he had when he was played through one on one, having watched his career, that's how he finishes his one on one. I do wonder whether or not that's something that Vieira had instructed Guaita that if this happens, actually, he will try and lob you. And by lob, I just mean sort of dink over you going down because the way that he stood up to him, I thought it felt quite deliberate there. So I still think he's an exciting player to look at. I didn't know about the injury, but obviously they're missing a couple of offensive players. But Newcastle, he's sort of thinking, James, it's defence all the way, and we ignore the kind of other end of the
Oh
pitch.
no, I'm very interested in this, Zach.
Yeah.
The only thing like we debated with Luca, and it was an interesting chat we had on Friday,
Mm-hmm.
was potentially where might he play when Wilson's back.
On the left, you think?
We
Maybe?
haven't. No, well, I think he probably plays on the right,
Oh,
but
okay.
because Newcastle often have a bias towards the right,
Yeah.
where Target or Burns seem to be a little bit more defensive and
Mm-hmm.
Trips is a bit higher,
Yeah.
that Isaac will end up in kind of, let's say, a 4-2-4 almost sometimes, where he's alongside Wilson, they'll be together. Wilson, when he's back, he's always an interesting asset,
Yeah.
but it might be that they nick each other's returns a little bit.
Yeah.
In theory, if they're both going to play, it's worth saying for those who looked at it, actually, James, on the left side, Newcastle were quite higher on Saturday than they normally are. It's an obvious answer for that, isn't it? It's called Wilfred Zaha.
Yeah.
Makes it a little bit more difficult to attack down that side and leave space. So there's a
see.
little bit of an anomaly from Newcastle's average positions, save for Trippier at
I
the
started the
weekend.
season with Callum Wilson. I thought, it's that the injury thing is, it's how it's played out. That's the thing with the guy, isn't it? When he's on
Yeah.
the pitch, he does return FPL points over the course of multiple game weeks. But it's going to be interesting to see how the two coexist. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe another team that we're not quite sure how that's going to play out with the new signings. What about Palace, James? I mean, they've got a defense that we think is solid. Obviously, they kept the clean sheet here, rightly or wrongly. Anything that you saw in this performance to recommend players being brought into people's teams?
I think they're solid as defensively.
Yeah.
I may even pick one up on the wild card in terms of
Mm-hmm.
future-proof thinking for their swing that kind of comes around about game week 10. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got them top of the ticker actually from game week 10
Right.
till the end, just to run through them fixtures. Leeds at home, Leicester away, which at the moment is nobody's. What is it? FDR 4, is it on FPL?
No.
Yeah, all right, change that.
Okay.
Wolves at home, Everton away, Southampton at home, West Ham away, Forest away.
Uh-huh.
Is their fixtures from 10 till the
Lush.
end. So
Mm-hmm.
from 10, they're best as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. So certainly very interested in Wilf, which obviously we've spoken about a few times. I could look at him this week on the wild card once I do it. I think, well, I'll suffer Brighton and Chelsea because he can do it in these games anyway, which he can. Then there's a great run of fixtures. And as I said, I may look at one defensively to kind of future-proof for in that run. So be it like Anderson or Gay, for example. It might be that one come in and I go, yeah, I'm gonna leave that on the bench to start with possibly and use as a rotational further on. So yeah, Palace absolutely right on radar. I think They're an above. Let me describe them as a above mid-table defense.
Mm-hmm.
And in Zaha, they've got a above mid-table FPL asset at the top end. And I don't think I don't think you can overcomplicate it. Like Edouard and Mateta share minutes.
Yeah.
Elise plays the easier fixtures a lot, which could be notable from sort of game week 10 onwards. He loves to use Jordan Ayew in these fixtures.
Yeah.
Anything more difficult, he loves to use Ayew
Yeah.
on the right-hand side as a more defensive forward.
I just say, James,
shout out for Gator was great at the weekend,
but
the goalkeeper position is very complicated with Palace. At some point, Sam Johnston will get in.
He was good, wasn't he? I was just thinking, James. So the life certainties, you got death, taxes, the common cold, and James owning Wilfred Zaha for a period round about October every season and sticking with him for months.
No, I didn't do it last year.
Sure.
I always that's why I think if I get him on an 8, I feel better about it. But it's always the same. It does always happen with them. You go, if I get him in, like if you're thinking of getting him now, he's going to stay.
Yeah.
Because every week you're going to look at it and go, it's a good fixture, it's a good fixture, it's a good fixture.
Yeah.
The fact that he's on pens now as well is more helpful than in the past, where perhaps he was obviously secondary to Milivojevic there and that.
That's a good point.
Wilf, very much on radar. And they've got players who can win pens like himself if Elise is going to play those easier fixtures and stuff. I think he's bang on it. Look at that goal against Brentford last week.
I mean, he scored a couple as well. I loved the finish he had against Liverpool as well. The accuracy, the precision there. He's a player I do like. Look, let's move on, James. So they got the Forest game against Bournemouth. So 5 goals in this one. Forest are going 2-0 up in this game before Bournemouth sort of came roaring back, obviously under new management now, temporary management right now, Gary O'Neill in charge. I mean, tough for Forest right now, conceding a lot of goals. It's not been the start that they would have wanted. I actually obviously watched them when they played my team and beat us. I don't know how they managed to get the 3 points down. I thought we deserved something from the game, but I'm starting to worry a little bit about them. Obviously, Nico Williams is still a nice price and still represents potential topic for us to think about. But how did you see this one, and how do you see sort of Forest ongoing? They've spent a lot of money bringing in a lot of players.
Well, when I'm at Spurs, as I was obviously on Saturday, I see the scores at half time and I see the scores at full time.
Yeah,
you can imagine my shock when I'm walking out the ground and I'll see Bournemouth for 1-3-2 from being 2-0 down at half time. That was what's happened there? Has there been a red card or no? Okay, no. So what happened? So what happened was the change system, and a bit of an FPL legend changed the game. Mr. Original Crapid, Ryan Fredericks.
He was highlighted on Match of the Day,
and changed the game because they switched to a back three. They moved Tavernier out from left-sided forward to left wing back. They played with a back three, which looked a bit uncomfortable with Adam Smith as right-sided centre back, but it changed the game. They matched up against Forest, and when the chances came, they took them. Helped by a horrendous error for Bournemouth's final goal with Solanke assisting Anthony, and he'll tick over nicely, by the way. Dominic Solanke now with
he will.
Fixtures to come.
Now,
He'll be real talisman for them.
Yeah.
And I think Tavernier, for those who are looking for a real cheapie, you could do a lot worse at the moment.
Okay.
Forest, I think the Bournemouth fans were singing at the weekend 21 signings and you're still fucking shit or something like that, basically. The problem is the back three is still the back three that got promoted. It is essentially still a championship defence. And it got exposed. And even you think of kind of key moments against Tottenham. Look at the marking for Kane's second goal. It's concerning when you reflect on it, isn't it? Like, how does that happen? Oh, you've got one of the best strikers on the planet. You having him? No, I'll leave him for you, etc. So I think defensively is a concern there. And we have to note that because Henderson and Nico Williams are both very interesting and also exciting FPL assets. They do have good fixtures coming up themselves. Leeds, Fulham, Leicester, Villa, Wolves. Good upcoming 5 if you've got. Great. It's going to make people think twice about buying now, isn't it? Because you look on paper and go, Leeds away. Do you fancy a clean sheet? Not really. Do you think Mitrovic scores against that back three? Yeah, I do, mate. And suddenly we've gone from thinking, Bournemouth are absolutely the worst team in this league, whereas Neil Grover, our Bournemouth correspondent, would like to point out to everybody, they've played 3 teams outside the Big Six and they've got 7 points.
Yeah. Not too shabby, right?
No, not really.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. They beat Villa. They've won at Forest and they drew with Wolves.
I think Solanke being out was big. as well, right? I think he's a player. You think back to
I don't think
pre-season.
it would have made a difference in those 3 games they got well beaten, but yes, he
No,
was.
nor do I. But I think from a system perspective and a talisman perspective as well, he's the star, right? I think we talked back to pre-season. There was a fair bit of interest in him at that point. Like I'm maybe overblowing him a little bit, Dominic Solanke, but it's all relative, isn't it? I think he's an interesting option. I just do worry about that number of players that Forest signed, James. I don't think historically, when I've been watched football like more than 30 years, I don't like it when
back
this happens.
could all change because they got a new signing in Bade, who I haven't seen yet. Niakate's injured. They use Kouyaté at centre back at Manchester City, and they may decide to go back to that because they've got so many central midfield players. They've got Yates, Kouyaté, Freuler, Lewis O'Brien. There's someone else I've forgotten in there as well. Orel Mangala, who played the first few, has got a bit of an injury at the moment. So it might be that I criticise that back three, and it might be that it looks very different in forthcoming games. If they keep that back three all season, they'll go down.
They're going to go down. Yeah,
but I don't think they will. I think it is.
No, they'll sign another 20 in January.
I think I think the manager's very good. I feel like, in all honesty, Bournemouth changing the system was something probably didn't foresee getting to, and games can happen sometimes where it's so easy and suddenly something happens and it's really difficult to get yourself up a gear again. And this feels like it was a little bit like that for Forest. Just a note on Jesse Lingard's positioning, extremely deep. I was tipping up Gibbs White as a bit of a Rodrigo replacement, and I still don't hate that as an option. Gibbs White is playing really far forward, getting close to Brennan Johnson. They are basically a front two. Jesse Lingard right now, the way he's playing for Forest, is not an option.
No, I did notice on Match of the Day, he was conspicuous by his absence, actually, as to how little he featured Jesse Lingard in the action. So it's interesting that tactically you picked up on that.
James, I think from the game when I went there last week as well, shorter fitness.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's interesting.
He won't have had a pre-season like everybody else, will he?
No, and Solskjaer didn't use him, and he didn't sign for us in January when he should have done. So there you go. It's his own fault. James,
it's unusual for a West Ham fan on his podcast to be bitter about something.
James, can I just, whilst I remember, so you're talking about potential one transfer move that you're thinking about, potentially 1 week punt, cheap defender. You mentioned Emerson for West Ham as well. Would he come into that thinking as well for that Newcastle game? Or are you just thinking, do you know what? Now, Wes Fofana against Fulham is still preferable?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think that the lack of knowledge of even being secure in terms of your system with certainty, and it's a difficult fixture on paper as well. Yeah, that probably means Emerson wouldn't be just yet for me.
No, fair dues. Let's move on, man, and talk about your team. So, look, they beat Fulham 2-1. That was the score. But from what I saw, you've got to be pretty pleased with how your team did. They looked
pleased
good,
with how
right?
they played. Honestly, man. Really good performance on Saturday. I've had a few Fulham people actually DM me and say, "Bloody hell."
Yeah,
it shouldn't have ended the way it ended.
Is Sonny ever going to score again, James? What's going on?
He's had more shots than anyone else in the league now without scoring.
It's got to happen soon. He's going to score. So he's going to go off big, isn't he?
A lot of people will probably say, because he's a bit of an XG buster, isn't it? So people will say, well, this is the regression, the return to normality or something. No, it'll come for him. I mean, to be honest, I didn't think he'd start. I was in the right doghouse, weren't I? 2:00 in the afternoon, the phone goes off. It's the wife. Why's Sonny playing? I've told her, you've got to get Haaland in, and she's got Sonny in the team. Babe, it's not going to play today. Which needs mentioning first as well, before we talk about the game, is the Paul O'Keefe leaks, if you will. He, as I've said several times, he's got contacts at the club. There is no guarantee that he's ever right, and he has been wrong in the past. And obviously his prediction was quite a bit off. And it's clear from this one that it was a prediction. It won't always be a prediction. Sometimes he does know. It's clear on this occasion that he didn't know. No. He's not big on his FPL. He doesn't care what FPL managers think about him and stuff. He's a Tottenham fan having a prediction, and sometimes he knows. On this occasion, he clearly didn't. If you're following it religiously, you now know not to. There's probably times in the future. That said, there were still bits that were right, like Sessegnon starting at left wing back and stuff, which, to be fair, I'd predicted on my stream for the patrons the day before, so it shouldn't have come as a huge shock. And actually, the team he predicted and the team I predicted was very close to each other, I think, as fan representation, basically.
Yeah. Sessegnon, James. I mean, geez, how many points should he have got
God. like ridiculous. Unbelievable. I
Yeah.
don't even want to look at what his XG data was from the
No.
weekend. I mean, it's one game sample and stuff, but
Mhm.
he adds weight. Again, our advanced tier patrons will know from a video I did from Perisic after the Wolves game that the weightage to Tottenham's left-hand side is absolutely huge. Where we will transition from goal kick situations into a 4-2-4, where the left wing back is the left winger. This is from goal kicks. It starts that way. Yeah, the weekend, ironically, it didn't. We did something very, very different, ironically, where Eric Dyer pushed into a midfield position.
Mhm.
And we pushed Bentancur and Højbjerg a little bit higher, and Sessegnon stayed really deep from goal kicks.
Yeah.
But in terms of the general play, obviously there is huge onus to get really high. He had a one shot unbelievably saved from Leno. It's one of the best saves I've seen this season so far.
Oh, yeah.
He had the shot blocks for the goal. It was his assist for Richarlison for the disallowed goal. He should have scored in the first half as well. Honestly, I'd said to you off camera, I could easily have had a 21-pointer, basically.
Yeah.
But there you go. It was part of the reason why I wanted him in the first place was I know Perisic isn't playing. Let me have this fella now, basically. Which was great at the start. And then Perisic got back in and then I ended up in a position where I had both. It's like, oh, great. What am I going to do now? A few people were making the case, and I know even Luke, who was with me on the pod on Friday, even mentioned the idea of sticking with this philosophy of having both. Well, the first thing to say is fucking Manchester City away this week, and I don't think you particularly want that.
No.
And the chances are there's always going to be the game, because I was sitting in the ground. I don't consciously think about FPL. No. It got to about 55 minutes, and I saw the fourth official was about to pick his board up, and I thought, I ain't going to be Perisic for Sessegnon on 55 minutes here. Can't be, can it? Well, that's going to happen at some point. And you're going to end up with the 1-pointers from both. Like I ended up with, I could have had that this week, couldn't I? Perisic, Sessegnon, Trent, and Robertson. That would be one hell of a foursome, wouldn't it?
Someone will have that right out there. You know,
of course, I'm sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, ideally, what you want to do with it is just have Perisic at the right time. Sessegnon will get minutes. And by the way, and I mentioned this would happen in pre-season, there will be the odd game where Perisic comes on up front late in games. And that's what he did. He came on and played left-sided forward late in the game. And if Kulusevski had got his head up a little bit earlier for one, he would have had himself a one-on-one late in the game, ironically. So, yeah, Perisic is a super asset.
Of course he is. There's nothing.
Would you play him at City if you owned him? If you think he's going to start?
Yeah, of course I would. Yeah, I definitely would.
I think you probably do, actually. Yeah,
I think you do. It's the sort of game. I don't think Man City are infallible. There's talk of Kyle Walker having picked up a knock as well. I don't know who's going to play at right fullback if he's not okay in that game as well.
That will drastically worry
because Kyle Walker is recovery
Tottenham
pace
specifically.
Hold that thought, mate. I've just I've just lost my speakers. Bear with me.
I don't know what we're talking about though.
I was just saying about Kyle Walker's recovery pace. Like if he's not available, and I don't know who will play at right full back for Man City if he has got an injury. If Perisic is against somebody who's not got that recovery pace, I quite like him in that fixture.
Guardiola will massively worry about playing Tottenham with no Kyle Walker, by the way.
Yeah, of course he will.
And by the way, Son.
Yeah, Nike. Yeah, definitely. Maybe that's the time, eh?
No, it's not the time. This is not the week to buy Tottenham assets. But yeah, really good performance. A few notable things, I think, on the selection as well. So Clement Longley played left-sided centre-back. Yeah. Really good, actually. There's been a lot of concerns about him and the fact he hasn't been getting minutes. Far more physical than Davis, and that may be a reflection on Mitrovic. Might be why he played, although Mitrovic kept pulling towards Romero's side. And Romero largely did very well against him, except should have done a lot better on the goal. On our Patreon podcast this week, I want to do the whole podcast on Emerson Royal. Right. I'm absolutely fucking sick and tired of people talking negative about him. Okay. Up and down every game, stamina phenomenal. So his final ball shit. The rest of his game is absolutely fine. He's playing really well at the moment. For people keep going, where's Doherty? So Emerson doesn't get FPL returns, doesn't mean he's playing badly. Seriously, he's doing a brilliant job for Tottenham defensively at the moment, which facilitates a lot of what's happening on the left-hand side. Bentancur coming back into the team like night and day compared to being without him at West Ham. Brilliant.
I see.
So good. Højbjerg, stamina to play all three of them games and still be the fittest player on the pitch at the end of that game on Saturday. He's a player I've been critical of, and I feel like every time I have to say I'm sorry I've been critical about him, he has been outstanding for Tottenham for the last 6 months now.
He was the one I was going to ask you about, Højbjerg. So
not from an FPL point of view, you weren't, surely. I know he scored, but
Yeah, well, I was just saying, James, because I was looking at the Brighton assets today. I'm sure we're going to come on and talk about those as well. I'm just surprised to see Højbjerg actually of budget midfielders. He's only behind the two Brighton budget ones of under 6 million. He's third of overall points. I mean, I don't watch Tottenham that often. Of course, you're there. Everything is there nothing in that. You just think it's just
Nah,
an anomaly after six game weeks.
it's anomaly. You get this thing now and again, don't you?
Mhm.
With someone who'll get 4 or 5 goals a season, like he will
Yeah.
end up getting 2 in 5 or 6, and therefore it stands out on kind of a small sample base and stuff. Even towards the end of last year, I mean, Bentancur had about 4 assists in the last 6 games or something last season.
Nothing
So
in it. Yeah.
you get little phases like this. The two of them are both trying to join in more
Mhm.
in terms of forward attacking, and it's something Conte very much approves of in terms of the right time. Yeah, on the counter attack, break your neck and get up there and support if you can and stuff. And it's great from him and Richarlison on the goal in particularly. Richie, I know everyone hates him,
Mm.
and I hate him, but I don't anymore. Like, I absolutely love him. His work rate, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. He just does not stop. He's a menace. That's the
He
best
would.
word I can use for him. He's a
It's a great
menace.
word. It's a great word, and I get the feeling he's going to be a big fan favorite down at the
He
lane if he's
already
not
is.
already. Yeah, and his performance was called out again on Match of the Day as to not just the work rate, but the quality of his play as well. And the chance he had, James, was it?
The
I think it was
volley,
the second
the
half. That
technique on that
technique
volley.
is,
Whoa.
yeah, pretty amazing. And do you think he's viable FPL wise?
No,
No, forget the
no.
Man City fixture. I'm more talking. Do you see, like, at the end of the season, do you think him going off for 150 plus
Well, I
points?
think I think there's a period this season where something will happen to one of the other front three, and
Hmm.
you're confident he's going to play,
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, it's particularly viable. I think if Kulusevski was unavailable during January or February or something, and he's down to 7.6 or something, and he's going to play every game, then yeah, he's absolutely viable. Even more so, actually, ironically, probably if Kane was out, and he's going to
yeah,
play right through the middle. We've already seen him play left, right, and up front,
yeah.
and we saw all this in pre-season as well. He's multifunctional. He's kind of like the prototype of a modern day forward in the sense you can get him to play several different roles for
Yeah.
you. His hold up's good. His touch is good. He's good with running. He doesn't have huge weaknesses, but I
Nope.
wouldn't say he's not like Haaland, who's phenomenal at everything. But he
Mm.
doesn't have huge weaknesses. He works really hard. He was probably man of the match
Good
at the
signing,
weekend.
wasn't he, James? Good
Yeah, and
signing.
it's
Yeah,
that knowing now that if we lose one,
yeah,
then he can come in. A lot of people have said, "Oh, is it danger to Kulusevski's place now and stuff?" Listen, Richarlison is a danger to all of them at the moment because he's playing ever so well.
yeah,
But none of the other three are playing badly, and that includes Sonny. Sonny's performance was absolutely fine
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
Saturday. As different day, he scores 2 or 3.
yeah.
Literally no issue with him. And there has been the issue with a couple of his performances. There was nothing wrong with his performance yesterday.
No, yeah, that's
Absolutely
important.
fine. We thought he was the one that was going to miss this one. That's generally what we all thought. We've
Yeah,
got a game against Marseille on Wednesday, and then it's Man City Saturday, and it's Sporting Lisbon Tuesday. No, so over those 3 games, the only thing I could probably tell you with certainty is I cannot foresee any world that Son and Kane don't start at Man City.
no,
Other than that, it's a lottery in
yeah.
between otherwise. And also lottery on the other side, otherwise for Leicester at home in game week
James,
8.
what did you make of Fulham?
Yeah, difficult for him. I think probably suffered a bit from a tough week. Like
Yeah,
Arsenal and Brighton and Tottenham is a
that's a
tough
tough week, isn't it? Three
trio
three
of
fixtures. Yeah.
fixtures. Yeah.
Mm.
Good. I admire the fact that they wanted to come and press. They
Hmm.
didn't come. They didn't come with an inferiority complex. You could certainly say that some of them might have been a bit naive, because I was never worried during the game until you end up in this weird state at the end where one bounce of the ball with
That's it.
Mitrovic, anything
That's
can
football,
happen.
man. Yeah.
But to be honest, like, they had a free kick with 20 minutes to go, and I thought if they score, it will score again.
Mm.
So I think they're going to give teams a chance.
Yeah.
I think therefore they probably won't have too many clean sheets, but they'll beat some good teams this year.
Yeah.
Mitrovic is so on it at the moment. He's in the form of his life.
Hmm.
And you can tell as a fan, I'm thinking in the ground, if this ball comes in the box, we are in huge trouble.
Yeah.
Every time they cross the ball, I think shit came out of my mouth because I think
Right.
he's going to win it.
Hmm.
He is phenomenal in the air and technically improved massively from the
Yeah.
player I last saw a couple of years ago. His
Yeah. Good on
touch,
him.
his link, everything so much better. I mean, splendid goal we got. Yes, Romero should deal with that situation much better.
Yeah.
But brilliant goal. And I think the whole crowd it was one of them. If it had been to make it 3-1, the whole ground would have clapped, I think, Tom.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
just not 2-1. He wasn't getting clapped
No,
for
no,
it.
no, no, no. No, I
Super
get it.
goal, absolute menace and threat. And
Yeah.
Carlos Vinicius, who you played for us, they brought one at the end. Kinel, he's bulked up a bit as well.
Yeah.
They were lumping the ball into them two, like at the end of the game. And you think, wow, this is a physical problem.
Yeah.
And if they play together at some point, it's going to just completely destroy teams with physicality, actually.
Andreas Pereira, you mentioned he's
Yeah.
starting in your bus team. What do you make of him?
Well, I think where he suffered was he got brought off because I think it was getting to the stage where they'd stayed in the game at 1-0, but they were staying in the game because we weren't putting the ball in the net, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And Kearney just give him a little bit more control. You can tell with Pereira, technically, he's got it. He's absolutely got it in terms of the way he strikes a football, his confidence. He's always head up. He's always looking for Mitrovic and stuff. Yeah, no concerns about the fact that he got brought off. Those who got the 2 points are very lucky to get him, by the way, because they made 3 subs and he was the last one off. And I think if he was the first one off, it would have been a 1 pointer rather than the 2. But I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. I think it was a point where Silva almost felt stay in the game here was kind of how it felt. I mean, the game was
as well. Quick turnaround, isn't it, as well?
Yeah,
subs, you know.
Absolutely.
I think he's one of their key players, isn't he?
Yeah, no, and he will be. And he's going to play in that 10 position. He's not a 4.5 typical midfielder.
No, he's not.
He's a 4.5 midfielder playing as a 10 behind, at the moment, one of the informed strikers in the league.
Agree.
And it is very viable to have Pereira and Mitrovic as regular starters, I think, beyond the Chelsea game. They are another team that will have a great run of fixtures. Forest, Newcastle, West Ham, Bournemouth, Villa, Leeds, Everton, from sort of 9 to 14. Great run of fixtures.
Look, quietly, James, you guys are unbeaten this season. I mean, people have said about the performances and not necessarily being as much as enthusiasm about the actual points that you've picked up. You mentioned the Man City game, obviously, in game week 7, but potential to wild card after that with the home game against Leicester. Do you foresee multiple Spurs players being in that game week 8 wild card?
No, and I mean, you can't even really judge it. I wouldn't even think about it too much till after the Sporting Lisbon game.
Mm-hmm.
But you can look at that Leicester game and be, I think, pretty confident as it's the international break afterwards that it will go with something very strong.
Right.
Bearing in mind it's 4 days after Lisbon and then it's international break afterwards, you would think Leicester at home is going to pick your strongest team. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, please let Brendan Rodgers still be in a job at that point because there's no...
Feels unlikely.
It's literally, I don't mean to tempt fate, but if Brendan Rodgers is manager against us, there's absolutely zero chance of them keeping a clean sheet. Yeah. They might get someone in tomorrow. It's their point Sean Dyche, for example.
Yeah.
It's a very different football match all of a sudden, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you look at it now and think that's a very attractive set of fixtures. It's worth saying afterwards for Tottenham is much more difficult. So Arsenal away, Brighton away is 2 very difficult games afterwards. So I wouldn't want to be in a position where I'm going treble Tottenham. But what I am thinking is things like Son and then move on to De Bruyne the following week, or Kulusevski and then ironically move on to Maddison the next week. And Perisic, I'd want.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. But yeah, I thought you played.
And Kane will be in the running. I think, to be honest, the way Haaland's performing, it is making the idea of going with a front 3 of like Haaland, Kane, Mitrovic is looking more and more viable.
Yeah, agree. And look, I did think it was the first time I've probably seen you guys this season and thought that was a top class Tottenham performance. So it was interesting. It came across in the ground, if probably even stronger than it did on telly. Look, James, let's move on, and probably don't need to talk about this one quite so much, but Wolves, important victory for them with a 1-0 win over Southampton. Southampton, I think, have been really impressive the start of this season. They've had some tough fixtures, but they, for me, performed a lot better than I've been expecting. I've only caught the highlights of this one on Match of the Day. I didn't see Wolves winning the game beforehand, so I'm being surprised at the outcome. But yeah, what did you make of this one?
The 11 for Wolves is okay. I take it you've heard the news, though.
Go on.
The new signing about Sasa Kalicic.
Oh, I thought you were going to give me some Pedro Neto news, but no, go on.
Yeah, I've got some news for that, Tom. Sell him.
Yeah, he's chopped liver. Yeah,
there's not much that. Mind you, Liverpool on the counter.
Yeah, he'll probably go and hat trick now.
Oh, that was his last goal, was at Anfield, mate.
Oh, so. James, pipe down.
Kalicic has done his ACL.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. just
Wow.
signed.
Yeah.
It's an ACL injury, is what's been described as such. So
Right.
it might not be kind of
Christ.
season defining
That's
as
rotten
such.
though.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which means supposedly, Diego Costa is coming in for a trial,
Oh, right. Okay.
which would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We've got unfortunately Jimenez just hasn't recovered,
No.
and you worry for them.
Yeah.
You worry for them in terms of scoring goals. It's a huge win. Liverpool, Man City next two, then West Ham, Chelsea. I mean,
Yeah.
bloody hell. But the thing is, none of them teams will batter the Wolves.
No, like we said, yeah.
They'll all find Wolves a challenging game.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
But if you defend properly against them,
Yeah.
you'll open them up at some stage, you would imagine. And all four of them teams would expect to beat Wolves. And you could see all them games being 1 or 2-0, couldn't you?
They're in a void, aren't they? FPL wise, they're in a
hugely.
void. Yeah.
Would they have to be now with those fixtures?
And what about Southampton? I mean, they lost this game, James, but as I mentioned, they've impressed me overall in terms of their level of performance. I mean, fixtures wise, they got Brentford, Villa, Everton.
They lost this game. They lost this game because Che Adams forgot to head the football.
Oh, it's bizarre. It's one of the weirdest things I've seen.
Wasn't it?
How he managed to handle his own header there. That was really weird, that one. Yeah.
But they just lost concentration or what happened, or
I don't know.
Couldn't miss. And obviously 99 times out of 100 did score and it finishes 1-1, or maybe they even go on and win the game.
Yeah. Brentford, Villa, Everton, Man City, West Ham and Bournemouth in their next 6.
Yeah, they're not on radar for me. One of the reasons they're not on radar is I think someone like Ward-Prowse consistency is absolutely great, but is it? Am I thinking long term? No, probably not really at this stage. Everything's kind of short term thinking, really. So I'd want to punt other people at similar value. You can never be sure from 1 week to the next that someone like Che Adams, if he's got the right fixtures, is actually going to play or not. Similar applies to Adam Armstrong. Same applies to Aribo. Stuart Armstrong hasn't started the last couple. Defensively, they always give you a chance. So, okay, could I look at Walker Peters, for example, as my 1 week punt at home to Brentford? Not what I saw from Ivan Toney last week. No, not really. I'm probably going to look in, and that's quite appealing as a 1 week punt, but I'm just not that brave, to be totally honest. So no, they're not on radar. They're probably going to stick with this 4-3-3, which I didn't think they'd do because of Lavia's injury, and they played Elyounoussi in a deeper position, and they've kind of been flip-flopping in pre-season between their regular system, the 4-2-2-2, and this 3 at the back. I think they're going to land on this now. Is the 4-3-3 is how it is regularly going to play. And that's probably really good news for Che Adams, actually. The problem is there's a lot of other very good FPL players at the moment in his position who are worth paying a little bit more for, in my opinion.
Fair enough. I do like the centre half. Is it Bola Ketchup?
Bella Kotchop. He looks really good.
He looks really like a quality find, doesn't he? Yeah, definitely one to watch. Maybe not right now from an FPL perspective, but definitely one to watch. But it's weird, James.
Just quickly, the goal. Go on. Because I was really critical of him on Friday, saying that everyone keeps telling me he's a really good goalkeeper and stuff, and I'm sure he'll develop into one.
Yeah.
Do you not think that was really weird on the goal?
So sorry, Dad, you just cut out there. You're talking about the goal for
Wolves on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
The Podence goal.
Yeah.
He ends up sitting on his bum and doing nothing.
It was weird because it was only until I saw the replay from behind where I saw how I wasn't first of all sure Podence even shot. I thought maybe he was trying to square it back across goal, but he played it into the ground, didn't he? And it kind of took like a top spin, like an Ozil type finish. It was really odd. And how
I don't think Podence meant it the way Ozil, in fairness, used to.
No, definitely not. No, there was nothing like that. There wasn't that level of like impudence behind it. But the whole thing was weird. I thought, did he definitely shoot? I think he did. From the replay behind, he definitely didn't think that technique. And the keeper, who really impressed me last game week, it was weird how he didn't react to that one.
He has moment. The reason I had concerns about him in the start was if you look back on the Tottenham goals in game week 1, he looks small in goal.
Yeah, he does look small. Yeah,
he doesn't. Not as in, he's not 6'4".
Imposing,
fine. There's nothing he can do about that. But actually, in his body shape, when he's about to face a shot, he's not making himself as big as he can. And in that incident there at the weekend, he's made himself smaller
he did.
than however he could possibly be, to the essence that actually all Podence has to do is hit the target, and it's all he did do, and he's scored. So he's still better than McCarthy. I'm not saying Southampton should drop him. I'm just saying I think he needs a level to go up, and that would concern me as well, looking at someone like Walker Peters for this week.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think there was the Man United game I watched where he impressed me. I thought he just looked quite assured in goal there. It's I think probably the first time I'd seen them play 90 minutes. Certainly seen them on Match of the Day since the rest of the course of the season. But look, I mean, 4.5 million as well. You mentioned they always tend to give a chance. I think goalkeepers elsewhere. You've mentioned Nick Pope as well. It's probably not where I'd be looking Southampton right now. I mean, certainly a technical. That was a weird goal that they conceded. Definitely. Look, James, I think it's really weird. We've been talking for ages on this podcast. We've hardly talked about Man City at all.
We hardly talked about VAR.
Yeah. The fact that Man City, go to Villa, who've not been good this season and weren't good for the latter part of last season either, and drop points there. Normally it would be a bigger deal, but that's how it played out. 1-1, a great finish from Leon Bailey as well to level things up. But anything there that you think? Obviously Haaland we think is going to be in everyone's teams and decent argument to be made for perma captaincy. But what about elsewhere in that Man City team, James? Where would you be focusing your money? Is it a case to be made for trying to find room for Kevin De Bruyne alongside him and binning off Mo Salah, for example?
Well, I captained De Bruyne this week because I was in the minority in thinking that Haaland wouldn't start.
Yeah,
you could say I got away with it. I suppose I have because it's a mistake. Because if I thought Haaland would start, I would have captained him. Yes, I've lost out on it's 2 points. Is what it's cost me in the end.
Yeah.
I've got Cancelo, De Bruyne, and Haaland, and that's the best three.
Definitely.
And that's probably what I wild card with. Although, like I said, it could be that I look at Son for a week.
Yeah.
Which ironically would mean me going Son versus Leicester and not having De Bruyne for Wolves away. What's the worst that could happen for not having Kevin De Bruyne for Wolves away like last season? I have no idea. But yeah, they're the best three. And then, if you're making concessions, then someone like Gundogan is obviously very interesting and stuff. Yeah. Yes, Walker, if he's fit, you could make the saving. I still think Cancelo is worth paying the extra.
Yeah.
What I wanted to speak about, though, I think I'm not going to tell anyone anything about Haaland that we haven't already joked about or laughed about, and yes, he is at serious debate for perma captain.
He is.
I hate the term, but
to
be honest,
it's a viable strategy, isn't it? It's hard to argue it.
It's Tottenham at home this week, and I wouldn't think twice about it. And when you're at that stage with a player, I think you have to say you're not far from that, really.
Yeah, agree.
When you add in Tottenham are one of the best defensive teams in this league.
Sure.
Tottenham historically do give Manchester City
tough
problems.
Games.
What I wanted to speak about, though, was that Haaland might be giving City a little bit of a problem. They've conceded 6 goals now, City, in 6 games. So they conceded 1 a game.
Yeah.
And there might be a little bit, I spoke about this going into the Newcastle game, the fact that Liverpool started slowly, that they might have their eyes off the ball, because actually at the moment drawing at Villa doesn't matter because they're comfortably ahead of Liverpool. Unless people really believe that Arsenal or Tottenham are in the title race, for example. It doesn't particularly matter at the moment. They'll just be thinking, we're well clear of Liverpool at the moment. They dropped points earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge blow that they drop points. I feel that they're suffering with a bit of a control problem at the moment, though, against certain teams. So one thing, obviously, Villa, you think because of the form they've been in, will get blown away here. But actually, what they have throughout that team is, when they're at it, is physicality and pace, which are 2 things that can give City problems. And it went from a stage of the game where City at 1-0, you thought they're in so much control here, now they've scored, no problem. So actually, after Villa scored, sitting there and thinking, they might get beat here. Like Villa Watkins running the channels, great, works so hard and stuff.
Yeah.
Bailey a real threat. You think they could do something here possibly. It's not beyond reason that Villa win this. It was in the balance. And I reflect on that Newcastle game again, and Guardiola spoke so much about control and wanting people like Grealish in the team because it will slow the game down. People like Bernardo Silva, I think it's wise shoehorning him in the team to play on the right at the moment. Give him a bit more control in the game and stuff like that. Essentially, with Haaland, they're a man short. As good as he is, they're a man short in their build-up and their control of the football, because they don't normally play with a player like that.
No, a lot's been made, hasn't it, of the infrequent touches and what have you. So, I get what you're saying.
And please don't misconstrue that in me saying Haaland is bad for Man City.
No.
I'm absolutely not saying that. Haaland is obviously making Manchester City way better, to the point that I can't see how anybody would think they don't win the league at the moment, despite results like this.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is we might have more results like this because there is a vulnerability in them. And so I know that if my team goes there at the weekend and defends properly, we've actually got a chance, because they are vulnerable at the moment. And I think that's clear. And that would put me off the idea of thinking at the moment, oh, I'll go Cancelo and Diaz on wild card, for example.
Do you
Not
think the
overly
loss of
interested.
Fernandinho and Calvin Phillips not having bedded in yet is also a factor in that, James? Or do you think it's more the fact of that number 9 not contributing to the build up?
I just think it's a control issue. Guardiola
Yeah.
spoke about it after the Newcastle game, where it might be that he spoke about Foden wants to go. And because of that, and Grealish being unavailable, like I said, he probably feels he can't play Foden and Mahrez at the moment. It feels a little bit like. And Gundogan's got the brakes on. When De Bruyne's in the form like he was in at certain stages on Saturday, where he looked like you can't get near him, what do you want to restrict Kevin De Bruyne for? Basically, we don't. So Gundogan, I felt, played with the brakes on a little bit. Rodri, for me, has been outstanding for City for the last 18 months. But if you get the centre-backs are pulled out because they want to be aggressive, and they can't help it, every single time they play Harry Kane, they want to go and be aggressive and get tight to him. Yeah. And he tends to always lift his game to play against them. And then you've got the runners like Son.
Yeah, tough game, definitely.
There's potential there. And yet, me saying that, I don't think for a second that City won't beat us. And I don't think for a second about doing anything other than captain Haaland for FPL, because I think it's the right decision. But I think there is vulnerabilities in them at the moment, in the sense that they are suffering with control. And that's also part of the problem for Liverpool at the moment. Liverpool's midfield three is struggling with a control issue as well, both with and without the ball, and they're also suffering.
You mentioned that midfield.
Those two teams will both get that fixed in the longer term, but it might not in the short term.
What do you think, James, about... So, I mean, obviously it's a great result for Villa in terms of not many people would have expected them to take points off City even in a home match. I actually thought there were kind of green shoots of recovery last game week as well for them in the terms of the level of performance.
Well, Arsenal, they should have got battered at Arsenal, to be honest.
Do you think... I think maybe I thought they were so bad in that Bournemouth fixture to start the campaign. I was dumbfounded by how bad they were in that game. I started with 2 Villa players as well in game week 1 in my squad as well. Evidently that was a mistake, but I just
regrets.
I've
had a few
over the years. I've had more than a fucking few, and not just the FPL. Look, I mean, do you think there's anything there that suggests that Gerrard's going to find his way out of this? And that is there anyone from a Villa side that you're thinking, do you know what, they're actually a player that interests me?
He could do. I mean, obviously our clash of correspondence tomorrow is Leicester versus Aston Villa. And I've had to bring it forward to tomorrow because in the planning, I thought there's no way that Gerrard and Rodgers are making it till Thursday. I think Rodgers probably won't make it to Thursday, but Gerrard definitely will now, in fairness. They've got great fixtures.
Yeah, they
particularly if Brendan Rodgers doesn't get sacked this week.
He really wants to sack, though. Yeah.
I mean, you'd think going to Leicester at the moment, then Southampton, Leeds, Forest. It's decent little run.
Decent. Yeah.
And Bailey's basically playing up front.
Yeah. What a finish as well, man.
Goal. Super goal. And it was his shot that led to the corner at Arsenal that led to the goal. So he's having moments to the point now where I'm looking at going from wild card in, he probably goes in.
Yeah.
And I can make a choice from week to week. Do I play him or Pereira or both if the fixtures are both good enough, for example?
Yeah.
So he's really under consideration now. Where I think he's down to 4.7 now.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to look at it on wildcard and go, am I sticking with Josh Da Silva, or am I gonna do something a little bit more interesting here and pay 0.2 more for Bailey? Well, probably pay 0.2 more for Bailey at the moment.
I think you would.
And I think for those who've still got, hold.
Yeah,
you just suffered Arsenal and Man City.
Yeah,
you hold.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to sell him at the loss, right? Because he's going to probably pick up some interest after having scored in that game as well. And as you say, with the nice fixtures, it feels like a hold, doesn't it?
Historically, he has injury issues. You're not going to be certain on any week yet that he's going to play.
Nope.
But you could probably look at the Man City game now and go, well, it would be very harsh if Gerrard left him out at Leicester.
Yeah.
I think you probably could look at that. So if you still got him, hold him. If you're wildcarding him this week, I'd punt him. And if Brendan Rodgers is still Leicester manager, then I'd start him.
You'd stick the triple captaincy on him. Yeah.
Not quite, but I'd start him. Other than that, no huge interest in Villa. They do have some good fixtures coming up, which is really interesting for wildcards. I've got Chelsea in 11, then there's Fulham 12, Brentford 13. Like, it's really not a bad run at all.
No, it's not.
Am I going back for, Cash went off injured, obviously, early in this one. But if he was fit, am I going back for Cash or Dean or Martinez? No chance.
Yeah, no, I started with Lucas Dean. No, it was a mistake.
No. Look, Bailey, though, interesting. Because
Bailey's the one that leaps out, isn't he? Definitely. Talking of players leaping out, look, I was so excited about this one, James, to talk to you. Obviously, it's a Sunday fixture, so it's taken a while to get to it. But this Brighton team, man, and this Graham Potter as a manager, what a geezer, what a guy. How well does he coach this team? They obviously had key players leave during the summer, but it just hasn't slowed them down. They're such an impressive outfit, and man, how good were they today?
So obviously the man that Leicester should be phoning, by the way. It's right there in front of your face. You've seen it firsthand. Whether he'd want to take that job right now, I
Who knows?
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, why
you'd like to think you'd like to think he would stick with Brighton at the moment. Money might talk differently and a different challenge.
Who really stood out for you then, James? Is it McAllister, Trossard, Gross? Is it all of the above? Is it defensively?
Well, I think the key takeaway for me again is Welbeck. It's him up front. He's allowing all the damage in behind.
Yeah.
Well, Welbeck is not a great FPL asset, but you've seen them at Fulham without him, and you've seen what they've done before and afterwards with him. He's absolutely essential to what they're doing at the moment. Estupiñán didn't play, so you had Trossard go back in this left wing back position, which basically they basically end up playing 3-1-5-1. I would describe it, because McAllister sits much deeper, and you had Gross, Mwepu, and Caicedo played higher today.
Casado's another good player, right? Caicedo.
Yeah, like him. Normally been playing deeper, played higher today. I thought, on what I saw of the game. The back three are decent. They had control of the game, passing numbers back up, where they've had a lot of games, and possibly because they had a difficult kind of start with United, Newcastle, West Ham's a challenging start, where they look at Leicester now and think, can control you, drag you out of position, and then expose the holes. And I mean, Leicester's performance, particularly in that second half, was it was manager sackable offence.
It was dreadful. They down tools, didn't
certainly helps, but they are a joy to watch. They've been a joy to watch without the top end level stuff for a couple of years now. Always look forward to watching them. To the extent now, I now look at their games and their performances and think, I don't mind if you get beat, because you're possibly maybe even a threat. They're a good side, and settled team at the moment is really helping them. Really, really helping them. And I think it will continue to help them probably up until the World Cup period. Might be more difficult on the other side, but they're a really good side. They have right now they should be looking at and aiming to finish in European place.
It's so impressive, isn't it, James? To have sold Mark Cucurella and Yves Bissouma in the same summer, two pretty fundamental players for them, and to have not let it bother them one bit is
you wouldn't even know, mate.
Sorry?
You wouldn't even know.
No, you wouldn't. No, exactly. And I thought that would be really would hit them and take some time to react to that, but not a bit of it. So, I mean, FPL wise, then, James, you say, like, let's say you were on a wild card, would you be looking to double up offensively, or is it just one of those players? How would you recommend managers go about selecting from their players?
Ignore.
Okay.
Probably, because from a timing perspective, for me, I'll be going into Palace at home, which is a game that they never win. They hate each other.
They do hate each other. No one knows why.
No, well, some story about Alan Mullery and something silly off the pitch, and Eagles and Seagulls, and nonsense. Some motorway derby or something. Anyway, they don't like each other, and they can't beat them. It's in their heads now. They can't beat them. So that's obviously a tough fixture for them, tougher than it would look on paper. Palace is a tough game anyway, in fairness. Then they go to Anfield, then it's Tottenham at home. So from a wild card perspective, for me, it's not actually on agenda. And then go to Brentford. I think, well, that's not overly easy either. Okay, then there's Forest that eases up again a little bit and stuff. Actually, after that, they go to Man City away. So they're probably, for me, an avoid. So I'd look at that period and think, well, I'll pay extra. Newcastle coming in the great fixtures. I'll pay extra for Pope over Sanchez. I'm not going to look at them defensively.
Okay.
How do I pick a Trossard over a Rashford or a Martinelli, for example? How do I even pick a Gross up over even like a Bailey? I'll pick Bailey over Gross on wild card, for example, at this minute in time.
Purely based on those fixtures. Yeah.
So I think, like, those who are on, brilliant. You're not coming off and stuff, and there's nothing to say you should. It's Bournemouth away this week. You're very happy, crack on. And if you're looking for something short term, and you're also thinking, I want a wild card in 8, if you want to like go for a Gross or a Trossard's this weekend as a 1 week punt, great, brilliant. McAllister isn't going to get a penalty and a 25-yard free kick every week.
No.
So I wouldn't be looking at him as an option, even though he's on the pens. I think money, no object, Trossard, even though he plays that left wing back, he's the best option. Gross is doing extremely well at the moment, extremely well. And owners will be really pleased with what they're getting. But unless it's extremely short term for the next 1 or 2, I think the moment might have passed a little bit, as well as they're playing.
Yeah.
I'd just be looking elsewhere. I'm a fixture head, so I'd look
Yeah, fair
past
enough,
it.
mate. No, I think that makes good sense. And look, we've talked about, so right now, time of recording, we should probably timestamp it Sunday evening that Brendan Rodgers is still in the gig.
I'm very
I,
tempted to put the audio straight out
yeah, I mean,
just because of this.
I listened to his post-match press conference after the game, James. It sounded pretty disconsolate
I've
there.
not heard any of it actually.
Yeah, he was asked
Other than
outright. He was asked outright, are you fearful for the job and what have you? And he gave a sort of straight back to it, and it was kind of, no manager, who's faced that can do anything about it. It's in the hands of others. I'll just keep working hard. It wasn't a kind of bullish response to me. So I do think he's kind of the road's coming to an end there after their rotten transfer window and what have you, and what's going on at the club. But if he is still in charge, do you think that actually it's just you just keep targeting them FPL wise week to week until they ultimately replace him? I mean, it's getting kind of to that stage. They were desperate today, I thought.
I mean, if you're wildcarding this week and your issue is up front and he's still in charge, then honestly, yeah, 1 week punts, Watkins, Bailey. Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
They are the easiest team in this league to play against.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. I know he feels disappointed that he's not been backed in this transfer window and stuff.
Yeah.
They on paper do not have a team that should be bottom. It shouldn't be outside the top 10.
No.
Team, even the team that he picked today, should still be in competition for fighting for Europe. And a new manager might come in, by the way, and they might very quickly, with a very attractive run of fixtures,
turn it around.
Yeah, and people like Iheanacho.
James Maddison.
Iheanacho, Tom, has got 20 attacking returns in his last 25 Premier League starts. That's 15 goals and 5 assists in his last 25 Premier League starts. Why has he not used this player who finished the Premier League season so well at the end of 2021? He hardly used him last year. He's hardly used him this year. What a surprise. He starts games and scores goals for you. But he has to play in the front too, which gives them system-wise a problem. Defensively, they are all over the shop. Moving Ndidi to centre-back just makes one problem, two problems, because now you've taken your best central midfield player in terms of ball winning out of that area. Samari's not up to the job as far as I'm concerned. The goalkeeper issue is laughable.
Yeah.
Because I think Kasper Schmeichel was part of the problem over the last couple of years, but part of the problem in the sense that he was a problem for him in set pieces because he stopped coming to claim things.
Yeah.
And he stopped commanding as a presence in that area, which was giving him a problem from set pieces. Now, they're conceded from set pieces, but just concede from bloody everywhere now.
Yeah.
That every time a team goes forward against them, you think that they're going to score.
Some of their defending today, James, was laughably bad, wasn't it?
But to be fair, it's not a new thing as well, Tom, because I've been saying for a year, they have to score 3 goals to win a game.
Yeah.
It's not new. So how long do you continue like that? And again, he's done brilliant for them. He got them so close to Champions League qualification.
Oh, yeah, he's been amazing. Yeah.
He won the FA Cup with them. Yeah. He's been brilliant for them. Clearly, it's end of the road.
Yeah, agree. So whilst he's in situ,
and I still actually think that he's a good manager. I just think it's gone now.
He'll find another job, won't he?
The goalkeeper problem is going to be a huge problem for them for the next 4 months because Danny Ward the first thing he needs to do is start wearing a shirt that fits him. You need to start wearing long sleeve shirt. You're not if you wear short sleeves as a goalkeeper, you better be fucking good, mate. And he's wearing the old tight thing underneath and stuff. The shirt don't look like he fits him.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't look right. And actually, he's ended up making quite a number of saves today. He made one very good save today. Actually, he made one very good save at Chelsea last week. But you do not look at him as imposing in any way. You think teams are going to score against him every week.
You do.
You look at them with no matter what fixture they've got. Exactly what I've said. They got to score 3 goals today, and I that's going to put you in huge trouble because your Vardy and Barnes and Maddison and stuff are not going to do it every week. And certainly in that second half today, there were periods where they lost the ball in high positions, and 100% there were footballers on that pitch who were giving up.
Yeah,
and
agree. That's what I saw, and that can't continue,
that
can it?
End.
That's the
game
end.
Over.
Vardy being benched as well. I mean, it does feel like whilst if he stays in situ,
I don't mind that so much because of Vardy's age, and he obviously played United on Thursday, so we don't know what the recovery levels are like.
No, he literally said that afterwards. He's like, I couldn't have picked him because injuries, and
that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
But I was just making the point that they understandably miss him. Look, let's move on.
What's he done for them this year?
Sorry,
what's he done for them? Nothing. Iheanacho comes in the team and scores.
Yeah, he's still talismanic though, isn't he? Jamie Vardy is still there.
No, I get that, but
Yeah,
maybe this is the year where me and Suj should have said maybe it's on the decline this year,
yeah,
possibly.
maybe
So
could finally be, could finally be. And
I
he's
would
just signed
be
a new contract, doesn't he?
I would be absolutely staggered if Brendan Rodgers was manager for the Aston Villa match. Aaron Lagal will be on Clash of the Correspondents tomorrow, and I think he will confirm a similar opinion.
Okay, okay, heard it here first. All right, James. Last
I think
last
you heard it
fixture.
everywhere, Tom. I think everyone
Yeah,
can see it.
last fixture of the weekend, James, was the Man United. Great game, wasn't it? Man United beating Arsenal at Old Trafford. That's now 4 wins on the spin for Eric Ten Hag's man after a pretty rotten start there in that 4-0 away drubbing at Brentford, and built on a pretty rock solid defense. It looks like, but I mean, you and I were talking pre-pod. You're obviously happy that the enemy got beat, but they were good, right? In large parts, Arsenal.
Yeah, I think they were very unfortunate to lose 3-1, no
Yeah,
doubt about it. And I think it's a bit of a shame for them that I don't want to say Arteta fucked it up, but as soon as he made that treble substitution, I looking at who's going off, and I just thought of the Newcastle game straight away, where they threw so many different players on it trying
yeah,
to get a goal, and I thought, well, you're playing a good team here who's got pace on the break. You're going to
yeah.
be in trouble, and they could have ended up losing 3-4-0 that night at Newcastle, and actually could have ended up losing like 4-1 today.
They could, yeah.
It was just a bit soon. If you're going to do that with 5 minutes to go and you're throwing the thing in the box, it's fine and stuff. But I don't know, like when Smith Rowe and Vieira and that came, I don't actually know where they were playing or what was going on. It just felt it was a little bit over the top. And it took away the control that Arsenal had because unquestionably, until the moment that Manchester United went 2-1 up, Arsenal had been by far and away the better side.
Yeah, they had.
And the reason that they weren't winning was part through some good defending,
Yeah.
but mainly a little bit of overindulgence from Arsenal and not finishing chances
Mm.
because the way they played was very impressive. The quality of the football was really good. The tempo was really good. They defended United really well. I mean, United's first goal was one of them things actually, but just think it's really good.
Yeah.
Eriksen ironically completed 3 passes to Fernandes in the match, and 2 of them led to goals.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which was one was the first goal where obviously I think it was Saliba stepped. It might have been Gabriel, forgive me, and obviously took Fernandes out. But it was a great ball through the lines from Eriksen into Fernandes. Fernandes higher now as a 10, and then linked and bang, they're off. And obviously similar for the second goal. Eriksen into Fernandes, timing of the runs, almost like the Heung-min Son running behind, wasn't it? Could have been
good ball from Fernandes, wasn't it?
Fernandes to Rashford.
Goal.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Other than that, Arsenal were pretty good. I don't think Arsenal should beat themselves up about it too much.
No.
That said, there also felt an inevitability about them not winning today.
Do you think?
I think particularly when City didn't win yesterday.
Okay.
And the fact that even if they got beat today, they were going to stay top.
Yeah.
And historically, that's the 7th time they've been in position. They've played Man United and been top going into the game, and they've never beat them.
No.
We spoke about this on Clash of the Correspondents in midweek, saying it feels psychologically like this is you've been in this position loads of times, saying this to Adam Pritchard about playing Manchester United when they've been in not their best moment. Admittedly, they had a couple of good results, and they're absolutely flying. And then you wet the bed when you go to Old Trafford. And it's happened again, but not quite in the sense of the performance, because the performance for 2/3 of the game was very good. In fairness,
was good, wasn't it? I mean, in terms of like owning the players ongoing, obviously they're still at top of the league. I suspect most managers are out there owning at least one, probably 2, maybe even 3 of their players. Do you think there's any concerns? Obviously, Jesus is looking like a potential price drop. I was saying this evening, as well. Do you think there's anything that you'd be like, it's time to think about moving away, anything like that, or do you think it's still we're all good, hold fire?
Everton at home next. So it's another one, a little bit like the Liverpool. And that's what just saying about people who have not decided to wildcard yet. Maybe just check yourself. You might have 6 players from Liverpool, Arsenal playing Wolves and Everton at home this week. Do you really want to wildcard now and move from that? Whereas I'm potentially thinking about wildcarding next week and going with none of them.
Yeah.
So Arsenal go to Brentford, which is a fine fixture, but can I come off a little bit early? Then Tottenham and then Liverpool. Then you've got Man City too after that. And you think, okay, well, look, these guys, Martinelli and Jesus, look like they're going to be serious template all season long at the moment. Fine. And I don't disagree with that. They're probably the 2 most underpriced players in the game. But if I'm going to bet against it, when am I going to bet against it? It's coming up really soon. Same as with the Liverpool players and stuff. So the intention at the moment would arguably to go none on wildcard.
You'd miss the Leeds fixture then, though, right?
Leeds away.
Yeah. Not fussed?
Not really, mate.
No.
To be honest, I mean, if Leeds come with the intensity they showed against Chelsea, Arsenal will have a problem.
Yeah. I mean, they did
So
just ship 5 to Brentford is all I'm thinking. But
that said, the Tottenham, Liverpool, and Man City fixtures are all at home,
yeah,
and they will give those three
they
teams
will.
one hell of a fright, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. And they're capable of winning all of them. They're a much better football team now. It's just a case of, like I said, if you're going to take it on, is this a period where you can take it on? I think Martinelli is a particularly difficult sell.
At that
Because
price.
at that value, I mean,
Yeah.
he's ever so unlucky, obviously, with a goal disallowed today as well.
Yeah.
I think you know that during the course of the season, he's probably only going to keep going up. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the season, it's 7 million, for example.
No, fair enough.
So he's a particularly difficult one to go against. Whereas Jesus, there are loads of options. You know,
We've got a question about that in a minute, actually.
Yeah. Gianluca Scamacca, if he comes into the West Ham team, there are alternatives that's slightly cheaper where you can punt Mitrovic.
Callum Wilson coming back.
Callum Wilson coming back. Yeah. There are a number of players, even to be honest, if Iheanacho suddenly is in the Leicester team regularly with a different manager, there are loads of different options that suddenly you go, yeah, I can go against this for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's okay. But as you say, what is he, 80% owned? Yeah. He's potentially going to drop to 8.1. Every blank, it's not like Haaland, is it? He's going to lose value.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I may even go none. Defensively, I wouldn't particularly want with that run of fixtures.
No.
They haven't got, what Arsenal don't have is that James, Perisic, Trent, Cancelo type figure, which is part where I went Ramsdale at the start. But he's not showing himself up to it. So if you're going one, it probably is still Gabriel or Saliba, I think, for coverage. But the fixtures after Everton don't scream at me as clean sheets.
No, fair enough, mate.
I'm probably no from a defensive, no on Jesus, I think, for a little bit. Not because I think he's a bad option, just want to bet against it for a while. Martinelli would be a maybe for me.
James, let's talk about Marcus Rashford. 18 points this game week. He's 6.4 million Sunday evening. That's going to go up probably by the time this is released, and probably multiple times throughout the week. Playing in midfield in terms of the FPL position, Ten Hag's deployed him as a 9 a few times, but his returns have been more when he's been operating on that left-hand side of the attack. And, you know, Tony Martial to come back in and compete with Ronaldo up front, and possibly you'd see him outside on the left competing with Jadon Sancho. How do you feel about Rashford as an FPL option? Is he going to be the darling of this season and an underpriced asset?
I think he's that. If you get the best of Marcus Rashford, it's another one that's a joke price that you can't particularly ignore. I'd say, look, it's Palace away this week. It's a difficult fixture. And is he going to get space in behind at Selhurst Park? Yeah, I doubt that somehow, to be totally honest. So returns are going to have to come from a different avenue. It is worth saying that you've correct to highlight it. The returns have all come when he's moved to the left. Within the game when he started up front, which also has its own relevance in the sense that he might be more difficult for fullbacks to then track his runs because they're not used to his movement all game. Playing against Sancho and Rashford is a very, very different challenge.
Different, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. And also an interesting statistic I found today that it was his 7th Premier League brace today, Marcus Rashford. I don't think he's got a Premier League hat-trick. It's the 7th time he's scored twice in a game. 5 of those 7 braces have been against teams in the top 6, as in the big 6.
Yeah.
So it's games where he can get that space
in behind.
Palace away is not that sort of game necessarily, and of course he can return.
It's interesting seeing a Ten Hag team, James, as well, playing in transition and on the counter.
Well, I think he's done absolutely brilliant. I sat here 3 weeks ago and said he's on for the potential chop here because it's been so bad. He's looked at it and I think he's assessed that and gone, right, how can I get the best out of the tools I've got so far? He's made sensible decisions like putting Varane in the team.
Varane coming into the team was a no-brainer.
Malacia has done pretty well at left back.
I'll tell you who's impressed me.
To be honest, playing to the strengths they had under Solskjaer, really.
I don't rate Scott McTominay, but I've noticed that since Ten Hag's kept with him, he's moving the ball a lot quicker. It's a subtle thing, but rather than picking it up and getting his head up and looking, he's just moving it on to, better players with the ball. He's actually, I think, improved his game as a consequence of that, and United looked better for it because I was stunned he kept his gig in central midfield, if I'm honest, especially when Casemiro's sitting on the bench and stuff. But yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. But yeah,
I think he's rewarded McTominay for for decent performances so far.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. He's improved heaps. Yeah.
Whereas with Antony, he's obviously stuck him straight in because he knows the system of our Ten Hag.
Yeah, he's a left footer as well, right?
I wasn't overly impressed with him, to be honest. I know it'll get the hype he scored and stuff.
Yeah,
I didn't see anything there that made me go wow. But there was certain things I noticed off the ball where he was talking to players.
Yeah,
he understood what was being demanded off the ball and was already, despite being a young player, was already looking at certain people like you stay there and was looking really interesting that he came in and did
good
that.
Signing. A lot crazy amount of money.
Really interesting that after he bought Ten Hag brought Ronaldo on, because when he did, I thought, oh, it's a bit wild to go here, and Arsenal really dominated here. He put Fred on at 10.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great move.
Yeah.
Because it nullified the Ronaldo problem as well. And he had someone close to him who could do his running. I think Ten Hag's done really well over the last few games, despite, let's say, United not being brilliant in any of them.
Yeah, they didn't look great, did they?
Well, against Liverpool, they were, obviously.
Yeah.
But in the 3 games since, on different day, they might not have won any of them. They definitely deserved to win at Leicester, but weren't fantastic, I think it's fair to say, particularly when you look at what Leicester have been doing against other teams.
Yeah.
But the results right now is way more important. He's got the crowd on side now, all the pressure's off him, and the players can believe into his ideas of what he's trying to do. I think what they're doing right now is not Erik Ten Hag football that he particularly wants.
It's not.
But there are certain elements that I see that are beginning to be implemented. It's going to be extremely slow. In pre-season, I said to United fans, you need patience.
Yeah.
This is going to be a transitional season where I think they'll have periods of setbacks.
They've got some great...
winning 4 games in a row doesn't mean we think United are going to win the league.
No.
They're not.
They've got some great defensive price points, haven't they, James, in terms of Malacia at left back and Diego Dalot, and Martinez seems to be the preferred centre-half for the minute alongside Rafael Varane as well. So I think there's some pause for thought there as well. But, I mean, just those next 2 fixtures as well for United. You mentioned tough game away at Palace. I think, no space in behind and what have you. Let's say, for example, Rashford does score in that game. Do you think there's going to be sort of captaincy talk for that home game against Leeds in game week 8?
That's interesting. I would have said no, but because of what's potentially happened to Leeds yesterday, which I think we shouldn't overplay. I think we should judge that as a one-off rather than a back to Leeds being whipping boys at the moment. But yeah, game week 8 could be a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
Because City go to Wolves. Are you not feeling of Haaland if you think he's going to play? But obviously Liverpool, Chelsea play each other.
Yeah, they play one another.
If Kane home to Leicester.
Of course.
If Rodgers is still there.
Yeah.
Arsenal at Brentford, you would not be great, I don't think, not from a captaincy.
No.
Could you make the case for it? Yeah, it was the only one we looked at in pre-season. We said if you were going to captain a Manchester United player up to the World Cup, game week 8 was probably going to be your only week. But I think as it would stand with the City situation with Haaland and the current Leicester situation, he wouldn't be top of the agenda, to be honest.
I see. Look, that's all the fixtures, James. We have got some questions. I've been taking a look at them. Obviously, you've not had a look at any of them. Obviously, we've gone pretty long on this podcast, and hopefully people have enjoyed going through all of the fixtures and stuff. But we've covered the main topics, but there are 1 or 2 that I just want to call out, if that's cool with you.
Go for it, mate.
So the first one coming in from Ryan Cameron, who asks, why do you think there's an array of strikers that we want in our sides this season compared to last season? Pure variance, or are teams playing with more to their strength of their strikers this season? I thought it was quite interesting because last season it was a bloody nightmare in terms of forwards. And throughout the course of this podcast, we've talked about heaps of strikers throughout the show. But you love to watch the game tactically. Why do you think that suddenly we're seeing, the advent of strikers in FPL really being an area to focus on?
Well, I think Haaland and Jesus are the reasons 1 and 2. Their ownership tells us that Jesus is not an 8 million FPL forward.
Nope.
Jesus really should have been kind of minimist 9.5 really, I think minimum. Haaland, I mean, they've run out of superlatives, but I'll ask you the question, Tom, because you won't have heard the conversation we had with Luke on Friday. What price do you think he'd be next year?
Haaland,
if he continues,
yeah. I think because if they still stick with 100 mil budget, I think 14's as high as you can go, and I don't see why you wouldn't go to the maximum level for the Man City striker. So I'll say if he continues at the pace he's at, what's he got? 10 goals already, James? 6 fixtures in.
Quickest player ever to 10 goals.
Yeah, so I'd say if he continues at that, you've got to price him at the highest price point that a 100 mil game allows, and I think that's 14.
Okay, let's go that. I mean, my personal opinion would be if he gets 50 goals, he needs to be like 16 million next year, because we all still be having him at 14.
Yeah.
If he's a goal a game player, everyone's still having him at 14 million next year. So at the moment, you can't look beyond it. Plus, so far this season, we've had the likes of Mitrovic, Tony, look like really decent options. They are. Mitrovic is running goal a game. Kane's doing really well. So Kane versus Son at the moment, it's definitely Kane, isn't it? Whereas you've got none of De Bruyne, Salah, or Son have, let's say, pulled up trees so far. Salah and De Bruyne are doing absolutely fine from an FPL perspective, but in comparison to Haaland, it's miles off at the moment. And the premium defenders, it's just a headache at the moment.
It's
so
tough,
that's why. Yeah. So one of the things I said in pre-season was, it's a new game. Yeah, we can all look at the value of the premium defenders, and I still can't get it out of my head going, I want James Robertson, Trent, Cancelo, and Perisic ideally as my back five. And I know that across the season, that's gonna work out really well for me in the long run. But it's not about the long run, particularly when you've got an unlimited transfers in the middle and sitting with a wild card. That we can come off this. I mean, it's clearly not working at the moment, is it?
Yeah.
If you'd gone with that 5 at the weekend, what have you got from James Robertson,
2-1-2-1-2-1-2,
mate,
mate.
Perisic? What is it? 7 points?
Yeah, it's a nightmare, is what it is.
I mean,
and
there'll be weeks where they get 40, 50 for you.
Yeah,
with no captaincy or nothing.
Funny how the game can change, James. You know,
it can. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, got another good question here. It's coming in from Aaron Miller. It's a player we haven't really talked about too much, but he asks, what the hell do we do with Mo getting frustrating? So we haven't talked about Mo Salah too much on this podcast, but, you know, player that's been an ever present in many people's teams over the last several seasons. You didn't start the season with him, am I right in saying?
No.
There you go. What about people who did? What do you think? Is it getting to the stage where you've got to think about, actually, this guy just isn't worth it? What do you think?
Interestingly, I'm not better off I'd be better off if I went with Mo.
Yeah.
Because essentially what I've gone instead is Robertson and Son.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'd have gone Son and Salah and Perisic, basically, even with Perisic not starting in the first couple of games, I'd be in a better position right now.
Yeah.
So I haven't been better off for not going with him. I said after, I think it was game week 2 or 3, I said it's been a mistake. I should have started with him. But I also didn't rip my team up to get him back. Getting through the Bournemouth game was going to be a pain, and somehow I escaped. And I admit that that's obviously extreme luck. But it's interesting because of Haaland, we're almost in the catch-22 opposite of where we were with a lot of Mo last year. So last year, looking at Mo and going, what's the point in having Kane or De Bruyne or actually, you can fit it in, can't you? You can go 2 premiums, of course you can. And there's a little bit of me that does think, even with the difficult fixtures coming up, if people were selling, I maybe want to buy.
Jump back on. Love it.
Generally, like if he's dipped into 12-8 and stuff like that, is he value versus Haaland right now? No. Of course we can all see that. But might he still prove to be? Yes. I don't know honestly where I would captain him.
No.
Up till I'm just looking. City got Brighton at home 13. Liverpool go to Forest.
Yeah.
Game week 12, he's got West Ham at home. Haaland goes to Arsenal. But if I'm just regularly going with Haaland, do you want a secondary option? There is a strong case to say what I'm on might be the right at the moment. Is to have De Bruyne as to when you don't think Haaland's going to play, just go with KDB instead. But I wouldn't stress about Mo.
No.
Like last week, he takes the 2 chances he got. They win 11-0. And everyone thinks it's a freak that he hasn't got 5 or 6, but okay, he got a couple. In the last minute yesterday, Pickford doesn't save his shot brilliantly onto the post, and he scored the winner.
What a save.
And maybe he gets top bonus and it's 10, 11 points or something. And that's why he's the FPL king and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's fine margins. I don't think he's playing at his best. He is playing a bit too wide at the moment.
Very wide, isn't he?
For my liking.
Yeah.
But he is still the king.
He's still there, isn't he?
He's not been dethroned yet, and I don't think people should panic. And I certainly do not think that those who have Mo Salah should sell this week.
No, I agree with you there, mate.
Certainly, if there's another blank this week, though, then people are going to get itchy when they start looking Chelsea away and stuff. But Mo scored in these games before. He'll score in any game at any time.
Once you're wild carding, if he flanks next week, right, that's going to be a tough one to keep.
Arguably, by the way, if I had Salah and Haaland in game week 11 with that game at Anfield, arguably I'd captain Salah.
Okay, there you go.
Because Cancelo cannot defend him.
Look, we've got a couple of questions here. Same topic, James. I'm going to pick the one from. This will be the final one, guys, as well, because I think we've covered all of the topics from the other questions that we asked. But thanks for sending them in. I'm going to choose the one from FPL SK, and he asks, does the start of European football impact your thinking on top 6 team assets? So we've not talked a lot about the fixtures, but obviously we start the European campaigns midweek. So what do you think in terms of how you think in terms of the teams competing in those competitions?
Yeah, I think at the start of the season, there was no big reason to look beyond the top 5, excluding Manchester United as an unknown element at the start, unless you were punting Rashford or Dalot or something because it's really cheap, was fine. Now, though, there is certainly a case to be looking at Wilfried Zaha as Crystal Palace talisman, Alexander Mitrovic as Fulham talisman, the Newcastle assets, Jared Bowen as West Ham talisman, for example, James Maddison possibly, as remarkable as it sounds right now.
Yep.
Change manager, great fixtures, and look at these guys who can be the big hitting players from these guys as talisman for these, even like Dominic Solanke at Bournemouth. They've got good upcoming fixtures. And look at these guys and know they're going to play every game at the moment. And you can't be sure from one week to the next about these guys. It is different this year because of the 1 week break.
Yeah.
Tottenham played Marseille Wednesday, Man City Saturday, Sporting Lisbon Tuesday. I can't tell you that Harry Kane's going to play all 3 of them games.
No.
That's where it's at right now. Now, admittedly, he almost definitely misses. If he was to miss one, he probably misses Sporting Lisbon in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Would probably be my guess, for example. And it probably doesn't impact, but there's plenty where it goes the other way, and it will be the Premier League game, for example. So, and that applies to everybody. Haaland,
it's not even the starting, Kane, James, is
everyone.
It's the 5 subs as well. So even if they do you do get the feeling of euphoria that your players have started. These players are not machines, and that amount of football, depending on how the game's going, they could get hooked before the 60th minute very easily with 5 substitutes being able to be used, right?
Yeah, thanks, Trent. I mean, I'm not alone in that one. I know most people have got Trent. All I did was laugh, and that's all you should do in that scenario, because I don't know why he's getting taken off with over half hour to go in such an important game when they're not playing till Wednesday. I can't explain that. Anyway, but yeah, adds to the point. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That ain't happening to Trippier, is it?
No.
No chance.
No
chance.
Wilf Zaha, forget it. Yeah, it's a good point.
It's not.
No.
So, yeah, it is a factor.
Yeah.
And it becomes more of a factor now. And I think for many people, it will be the right play. My intention right now, after this week, I'm sticking with what I got because I think the fixture list this week is good.
Is meant, yeah.
But next week, I do want to look at Bowens, Trippier's, Maddison's, Mitrovic's, Solanke's, Maddison's.
Okay.
And look at spreading this.
All right, dude. Look, that's about a wrap for today. So there are some other questions, guys, but looking through them, I think we've covered them all in our analysis of all of the fixtures. So, that concludes it, James. Hopefully, I've threatened Sudge's, running of this show longer term.
This is going to be like over 2 hours, isn't it?
I hope so. Hopefully, you don't cut it all down. I was about to say it's been a long show, but you're going to do the edit, so it might. We ain't
cutting anything other than the bit in the middle where you lost sound.
When my AirPods gave up the ghosts. All right, mate. Well, that's it's been meant to talk to you again, and hopefully our listeners enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure, man.
I don't doubt you'll sit in this chair again next time Sudge goes on holiday, mate.
I hope so,
got a lot of love for you, mate. Have you got anything you can plug before you go?
I mean, the only thing is, so I've been producing videos for fantasyfootballfix.com, which has been awesome to talk to some awesome managers as well. And they'll be coming back in the next couple of weeks. So just follow me on my Twitter at UtterlyTC, and you can check those ones out as and when they come back in the next couple of weeks. And I've really enjoyed doing that. But for me, it's just good to be back playing. I didn't play last season. So to be back playing, I got a new kind of bit more philosophical about the game these days. Don't take things quite so seriously. Still obviously enjoy it. I just rambled on for like 2.5 hours to you, James. So I can talk the ears off a donkey about this. But come give me a follow on Twitter at UtterlyTC, and we'll have a chat and hang out.
Good man. Love you, mate.
All right. Look, I'm going to try and try and remember Sudge's outro as well, because I can never quite get that part right. So unless there's anything you want to say about upcoming content or anything, James.
There you go. That's the first bit.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I just want to sell Leicester versus Aston Villa tomorrow because God knows. The sadistic in me is obviously from a Spurs point of view. I'll shout a goal when Bailey scored, even though it blew the can shadow. I was off. I love some of that. That's all right. We go top if we win Saturday. I mean, that's us definitely getting beat as well now. I will be at the Etihad on Saturday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I wanted proper tears on that Leicester Villa podcast.
Okay.
But Steven Gerrard is definitely safe for now, but it'd be obviously thoroughly interesting to hear what Aaron says. But these two teams generally, you think, I'm not buying them this week. I'm telling you, Leicester Villa upcoming fixtures are pretty good.
Yeah.
So it'd be really interesting to get their opinion on the potential assets as well, even if it doesn't feel like it right now.
Sean Dyche, I like that shout. We had a question about that as well, actually. So Sean Dyche, if he gets the Leicester gig, yeah.
No, I can't see that. I think they'd look overseas, to be honest. Leicester,
yeah, fair enough.
Would be my take. Wednesday would be Sky. Thursday, probably do people's poll vote. Yeah, maybe we'll get Sudge's opinion on VAR or something. Who knows? Friday, I'll be streaming. If you want to support the content, www.patreon.com/Planet FPL includes a preview of Champions League fantasy coming very early this Tuesday morning ahead of the Champions League restart. Tom, you can feel free to do the outro.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and
what it was.
I'm a patron there, and I'd encourage people to get amongst it. There's loads of awesome content. Then, if you're not already a patron, then do give it a thought and do give it a subscribe. So I think, James, if I get it right, all I can say is thanks for listening and ciao for now.
Cue music, please, man child.